Chapter 1861. The power of the origin was extremely powerful. He could kill these warriors with a wave of his hand if they were alone. But if they worked together, they could kill even a first or second level god. Most importantly, there were a lot of them. The two generals were the strongest among them. Even though they hadn't mastered the power of the origin, they wielded their weapons. However, the weapons they used all contained great power, and each of their moves contained extremely terrifying power. It was a very strange sight. The leader behind them must be extraordinary to be able to raise so many experts, Tang Sen said. These warriors weren't bound by the laws of the Dragon God realm, and they were so powerful when they worked together. I'm itching for a fight. Long Xia coughed a couple of times. These people are pretty strong. I'm not their match, even if they work together. That being said, I think those two are the only ones who can fight them alone. However, after the Dragon Clan fled, the Dragon Clan, the blood-red curtain that looked like a barrier, started to fade away. He saw that the mysterious warriors were surrounding him from all directions. It was almost as if they were the ones who had surrounded the dragons just now. Holy shit, there are so many of them. Long Xia looked around and was stunned. This is a little ridiculous. Not only are these humans strong, but there are so many of them as well. Tang Sen couldn't help but shiver. It was at this moment. A voice exploded from the sky. "Who are you?" A low, muffled voice rang out. Unknowingly, the man with the giant hammer had already arrived in front of them on his warhorse. "And who are you?" Long Xia asked. "Everyone in the Dragon God realm is a dragon." "Yeah." The large man looked at Long Xia and Tang Sen in surprise. "Could it be that you're the allies His Majesty spoke of? Just the two of you?" Tang San's heart skipped a beat. These humans had allies? He exchanged a glance with Long Xia. Tang Sen said, "We are also part of the human race. I wonder if we can meet with Your Majesty? This is the Dragon God realm, and it's extremely dangerous. We know a thing or two about it." "All right, I'll go back and report this to His Majesty." The big man sized up the two of them. He wasn't stupid. Before they attacked, those dragons were clearly fighting. Since there was no one else here, it could only be a suitable place for these two to fight. To be able to fight with so many dragons and only two of them, this was enough to show that they were very powerful. Since they were all humans, they naturally couldn't become enemies. After a short while, Cao Cao and his many strategists and generals walked over. "This is the son of heaven of the Great Way." Su Chu's roar was like a dragon's roar as he introduced to Cao Cao. "Who are you?" Cao Cao narrowed his eyes and glanced at the two of them. They were not allies, because the positioning was wrong. These two people probably had other backgrounds. The Emperor of Great Way? Tang Sen frowned slightly. Could it be the Emperor of the mortal world? That's not right. How could a mortal Emperor's warrior have such powerful strength? Unless the level of power in the human world over there was extremely high. An emperor of a dynasty had personally come to this world. No wonder these warriors were so powerful. Tang Sen paused momentarily before replying, "I am Tang Sen, the godly king of the Dalu divine realm. This is my follower, Long Xia. The Dragon God realm originally wanted to invade our realm, so I came here to see what the situation was like. I didn't expect to be surrounded by so many dragons as soon as I entered. May I know why you came to this world?" The godly king of the God realm? Cao Cao's eyelids twitched. Their origins were extraordinary. Since they were from the God realm, they were probably not simple. As a godly king, they were probably extraordinarily strong. As if recalling something, Cao Cao laughed and said, "So you are the godly king of the God realm. I am the son of heaven of the Great Way, but I received the favor of my God and was sent to this world to train myself. It is because of my God's favor that I can display such great strength in this world. My God's name is the Ancestor God." Hearing this, Tang Sen and Long Xia were even more shocked. Ancestor God? Tang Sen sent a sound transmission. The Son of Heaven of the Great Way is backed by another god? No wonder they are able to display their full strength without being restricted by the laws of the Dragon God realm, even though they haven't even mastered their origin power. This Ancestor God can help them avoid the restrictions of the Dragon God realm. I'm afraid he is as strong as the 10,000 Dragons universe. Ancestor God. Long Xie muttered. They believe in gods. They worship gods, and these humans are so strong. Is this ancestor god from the god realm that boss is going to face? Tang San's heart skipped a beat. He knew about the matter between Big Brother Feng and that god system universe. After all, the Holy Scroll was signed in the Douluo divine realm. Due to the chaotic flow of time, the god of the divine system universe had originally wanted to invade the Douluo divine world. Later, he fought Brother Feng and started the War of the Gods. Tang San naturally learned about it later. He didn't expect to meet another god of that god realm here. Is this god realm that powerful? Tang San sent a sound transmission. The Son of Heaven of the Great Way worships the ancestor god. In other words, he is only one of the ancestor god's believers, but he already has such a strong force. Isn't that ancestor god even more terrifying? Long Xie shrugged. We can use this opportunity to defeat the dragon god realm, Long Xie said. The ancestor god used the dragon god realm as a trial for his believers, and it looks like the Son of Heaven of the Great Way isn't the only one. We might even be able to deal a heavy blow to the dragon god realm. We won't have to trouble you then, boss. Long Xie suggested. Makes sense. Tang San agreed. At the same time, Cao Cao was also sizing up Tang San and Long Xie. Seeing that the two people's attitudes and expressions had changed to different degrees after they revealed the name of the ancestor god, he calmed down a little. The ancestor god was actually very strong. It looked like the god kings of the god realm were starting to fear him. It couldn't be helped. The two of them were surrounded by so many dragons, but they were still alive. They were probably very strong. If a fight broke out, they would probably suffer heavy losses. Cao Cao didn't dare to underestimate the ancestor god, so he decided to use the ancestor god's name. It made the ancestor god realm wary. After all, I have a backer too. Cao Cao knew that he had left the god realm. He had to be more careful when he went to other worlds. The ancestor god didn't say anything. The event dungeon, this time, had a certain level of difficulty. No one knew what kind of experts they would run into in the dragon god realm. The god realm has been invaded, and you came to the dragon god realm to gather information. I'm sure you know more about this place than we do. Why don't we travel together? Cao Cao narrowed his eyes. I think the dragon god realm is our common enemy, right? Plus, we have allies. Based on the information you've provided, I think it'll be good for both of us. Tang San calmed down and exchanged a look with Long Xie. That's exactly what we were thinking, he replied with a smile. Allies? He wondered how strong their allies were. Chapter 1862. At the same time, on the other side of the Dragon God Realm. So this is the Dragon God Realm? Yi Fan looked at the vast and boundless world. He looked excited. Not bad. It was much better than the Eastern Wasteland. This could be seen from the plants and the surroundings and the spiritual energy in the air. Let's not talk about anything else. Just by cultivating here, my cultivation speed should be 2 times faster. Yi Fan took a deep breath. He didn't bring many people with him, only about 300 or so. Yi Fan knew that this number was nothing compared to Ying Zheng and Cao Cao, who could bring tens of thousands of troops with them. But these people were the elites he persuaded after he founded the Ancestral God School. There were many elites from the Eastern Wasteland Sacred Ground and the big families among them. Everyone, let's move within a 5-kilometer radius for now. We'll move together after we figure out the situation. Yi Fan said after thinking for a while. He planned to share the location of this place with the group first. This was a group activity, not a solo activity. The Dragon God Realm was an extremely large world, although the Ancestral God said that it was an active dungeon. But if they really treated it as a dungeon, they would be at a great disadvantage. The spirit energy in this world was so dense that it was bound to give birth to extremely powerful beings. Yi Fan wasn't arrogant enough to think that he could defeat the strongest beings in this world with just these people. Following Yi Fan's order, the many young experts from Shrouding Heaven's world began to explore the surroundings with great interest. With their speed, they would be able to traverse a radius of 10 miles in a few dozen breaths, at most if they were to move normally. But if they searched carefully, even if they had to collect every flower and plant in this world, it would take a lot of effort. A moment later, Yi Fan had a rough idea of the nearby landscape and situation. He immediately sent a message in the group. Fan Yi, everyone, I'm already in the Dragon God realm. I brought about 300 people with me. My current location is surrounded by grassland. There are many wildflowers and fruits growing here. These flowers and fruits all contain a very rich spiritual energy. I plan to rest here for a while before setting off. If you see the grassland, please tell me. Where are you? Yi Fan's message appeared. Immediately, the rest of the people started to send messages. Yeoman Pawn's waiter. I'm alone. Fan Yi, you actually brought 300 people with you? How did you bewitch so many people? Fan Yi said, get lost. I built the ancestral god school, and for the sake of points, I recruited many believers for the ancestral god. It was a mere 300 people. If it was over there, I could raise at least 1,000 people with a wave of my arm. The waiter of the Eternal Peace pawn shop said, so that's how it is? This place is too dangerous, and it has a close relationship with the ancestor god. I didn't tell my friend about it. However, my current location, is on top of a cliff. Moreover, I think I saw an egg at the edge of the cliff. A super huge egg that's 10 times bigger than me? There seems to be an endless abyss below the cliff. It's very scary. There's also a cliff behind me, and there's no way to go. Yi Fan was taken aback and almost laughed out loud. The waiter was really unlucky. Shi Ancient Emperor Jade. Young man Ji, don't be afraid, but I suggest you find a place to hide as soon as possible. The egg you saw was most likely a dragon egg from this world. The dragons in this world were extremely powerful. Since you saw this dragon egg, you will definitely encounter a powerful dragon. You have just grasped the essence and have yet to fully understand where its strength lies. It will be very difficult for you to defeat such a powerful life form. The waiter of the Eternal Peace pawn shop said, all right, where are you? Shi Ancient God Jade said, Xiao Yin GG, and my luck seems to be quite good. We are in a cave. There is an extremely powerful, huge dragon that controls the strength of a flame within this cave. Xiaoyan GG, and I spent a great deal of effort to defeat it, after which we discovered that there is actually a wisp of mysterious flame within this cave. This flame is extremely powerful, even more powerful than the heavenly flame in our world. Not only is the temperature extremely high, it can also corrode the mind. Brother Xiao Yin and I named this flame Heart-Eroding Earth Flame. With this flame, our Qi method has once again leveled up and become even stronger. We plan to train again. Above the cave is a deep and dense forest. The forest is scarlet red in color. It seems that it has been infected by the flame here. We plan to leave immediately and find a safer place to train again. Otherwise, the huge flame dragon might come back. Hearing this, Yi Fan's mouth twitched. These two fellows were really lucky. Compared to the waiter, the difference was like heaven and earth. The waiter of the Eternal Peace pawn shop said, Envy. JPG. Everyone, what about you guys? I want to see if there is anyone more miserable than me. After a while, Ghostly said, I don't seem to be doing too well here. Fanny said, It's here. If it's not too good, then it's super good. Brother Ghostly, am I right? Comic. JPG. Ghostly said, This is really not the case. I also met a few huge dragons in a swamp. Those huge dragons were extremely powerful, basically comparable to the immortal I met before. Their entire bodies were scarlet black, and their auras were extremely powerful. When I came over from a teleportation gate, I just happened to see those huge dragons fighting. When immortals fight, mortals suffer. I'm immortal, so I naturally suffer as well. I couldn't see the tails of those huge dragons. Just dealing with one of them would be difficult. There were 7 or 8 of them. They seemed to be divided into 2 factions. Any one of their dragon breaths could cover an area of a few hundred miles. Helpless, I could only use a kind of turtle breathing technique to sink myself into the swamp. But even so, that swamp contained an evil and jealous energy. The huge suction force almost caused me to be unable to get out. But this swamp was also not ordinary. After I sank into it, I actually didn't suffer any injuries from the aftermath of the battle between the huge dragons. After a long time, until I really couldn't hold on any longer, I barely managed to get out of the swamp. At that time, I really only had one breath left. At this point, Ghostly paused. Fan Yi said, I understand. You came up to pick up the corpses, right? Did you find those huge dragon corpses the moment you floated up from the swamp? Ghostly said, awkward. JPG, the waiter of the Eternal Peace Pawn Shop said, so, you are right? Too, she ancient god Jade said, oh my, then the huge dragon in the underground cavern that Brother Xiao Yan and I met should be very powerful. But Brother Xiao Yan and I could only chase it away. It was too difficult to kill it. But I feel that the huge dragon should be full of treasures. Just those tough dragon scales alone, even a Tian-level battle technique, wouldn't be able to hurt it. That's enough to see its value. Wait, pick up the corpses? Xiao Sun Air seemed to have just reacted. Chapter 1863. Ghostly about that. I probably saw the corpses of a few giant dragons. By the way, I seem to have found out why they were fighting. Fan Yi, don't tell me that they were fighting over some kind of natural treasure in that place. Ghostly awkward. JPG, Fan Yi. F***CK. Brother Ghostly, your luck is too amazing. When the sandpiper and clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Tell me, what is it? Ghostly. It seems to be a piece of bone. This bone is emitting an extremely powerful aura. I don't know what it is for now, but I have a picture that I can upload for you to see. In order to share their location, they would usually upload pictures or short videos of their location and share them. The bone in the picture was extremely huge, even bigger than Ghostly's entire body. At first glance, it seemed to be the bone of an extremely huge life form. The bone emitted an ancient and ferocious aura, and there was even a faint purple aura lingering around it. At first glance, one could tell that it was most likely the remains of a giant dragon. Eternal Peace Shop's employee. It doesn't seem to be of any use to you? It should be for those giant dragons, right? Ghostly. That's why I said that I'm not too good. I have no use for this treasure at all. Fan Yi. Ask the ancestor god. They were stunned, and only then did they remember. Ghostly immediately sent a message to ask the ancestor god. Ancestral realm. Master, this thing seems to be... Yin Mengyao looked at the picture sent by Ghostly. Wang Feng glanced at it, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He smiled and said, it's the remains of the dragon god. To be more precise, it's the bone that the dragon god shed when he cultivated back then. Even now, it still contains some of the dragon god's power. To the dragons of this world, it's a supreme treasure that can improve their bloodline. Yin Mengyao instantly understood. So that was the case. It's not very useful to them. Wang Feng pondered for a moment and said, however, the remains of the dragon god contain the genetic code of the dragon god. Those giant dragons also have this genetic secret. From this, we can see some of the secrets of the 10,000 Dragons universe. Looks like it's time to release a point reward system to them. In the chat group, Ancestor God. This is the remains of the dragon god, the creator of the dragon god. It's extremely helpful to the dragons of this world. It's almost useless to human cultivators. This item could be offered directly in exchange for points. Now that all of you have entered the Dragon God realm, it is time to announce the point system for the Dragon God realm's event dungeons. First, anything in this world can be directly offered in exchange for points according to its value. Secondly, you can use your own strength to kill the life forms of this world. Depending on the strength of the dragon you kill, you can obtain different points. 3. Become stronger in this world and strengthen yourself. You can also obtain points. Fourthly, the ancestor god of this world has given you a chance to avoid death. Treasure it well, but it will consume all the points. 5. By changing the course of this world, you can obtain a large number of points. The so-called changes every blade of grass, every tree, the dragon clan's faith, their value, the world's power, the leader's first kill, and so on, are all considered to affect the progress of this world. Wang Feng listed a lot of rules for accumulating points. In any case, as long as one was alive in the Dragon God realm, they would be able to earn points even if they did nothing but quietly find a place to cultivate. It could be considered a great benefit. However, he could only obtain a small number of points. If he wanted to obtain a large number of points, he would still need to explore the Dragon God realm. Ghostly, so I can directly offer these things in exchange for points? That's great. I was just worried about how to use these things. Also, those giant dragons are too big. My storage ring can't even hold them. Ancestor God, sure. Ghostly didn't say anything else and sacrificed all these things. The Dragon God's remains were useless to him. As for those giant dragons on the verge of death, he couldn't take them away. Although Ghostly knew that these giant dragons were full of treasures, he also knew that there were definitely more good things in the Dragon God realm. And the points he could exchange for them could be used to strengthen himself immediately. Ding! Ghostly has sacrificed 5 semi-god giant dragon corpses and a Dragon God's remains. The reward is 200,000 points. A crisp notification sound immediately rang out in the group. After Wang Feng was done giving out the rewards, he left the group and let them slowly digest the news. In the chat group, Fanyi, fuck, brother Ghostly, wait a moment, I'll come find you immediately. Your luck is simply too good. We've just started and you've already obtained 200,000 points. I'm vomiting blood. Ghostly, cough cough, thank you for the Ancestor God's gift. After all, the things we obtained can be sacrificed to the Ancestor God to exchange for points. If it wasn't for the Ancestor God's gift, I reckon that I can only look at them and not take anything away. Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. Don't say anymore. I'm going to steal the dragon eggs now? Fuck, am I really the one with the worst luck? The worker had just finished sending the message. Suddenly, Li Fei Yu. I feel that I might be the one with the worst luck. Now, Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. Eyes brightened. JPG. Brother Fei Yu, what do you think? Li Fei Yu, cough cough, I think. I'm in a dragon palace, shivering. JPG. Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. Fuck. Fan Yi fuck. She Ancient Emperor's Jade. Fuck. Ghostly. Shocked face inside a dragon palace? Dragon palace. Could it be inside a palace built by these dragons? Li Fei Yu. Yes, that's right. To be precise, it's inside a dragon city. This dragon city is extremely huge, and the building in the center is the dragon palace. The buildings here are extremely huge, and I'm just like a dwarf here. Even a single dragon scale of those dragons is several times bigger than mine. How sad. Fanyi, brother, you're meeting the final boss right from the start. We're all in the outer regions, and most of them are barren. You've already reached the headquarters of those dragons. Are you all right? Li Fei Yu, cough cough. How can I be all right? When I was teleported here, I happened to be in the home of a dragon. Luckily, this dragon wasn't at home. I relied on my physique to hide my aura, and I was afraid that it wouldn't be safe, so I immediately went to the Divine Hunt activity pool and used my remaining points to exchange for a hidden Heavenly Stars talisman. This talisman is worth tens of thousands of points, and it can only last for a few hours. It should be able to transmit all the information about me. I have to say that the items of the Ancestor God are really awesome. Using the hidden Heavenly Stars talisman, I carefully walked out of the dragon's home. Then I circled around for half a day, thinking that I could get out of Dragon City. In the end, I found myself in the core region of Dragon City, the Dragon Palace. Luckily, the Ancestor God is really awesome. I'm currently in a corner of the Dragon Palace. There are too many dragons here, and they are densely packed. There are tens of thousands of dragons guarding outside the Dragon Palace. They didn't discover me. Can you believe it? Right now, I am a gold core stage cultivator, but I'm panicking now. The effect of the hidden Heavenly Stars talisman seems to only last for half a day. Not to mention Dragon City. I'm already confused inside the Dragon Palace. I can't even walk out. I'm in a daze. They were probably shocked by Li Fei Yu's encounter. Everyone was speechless. Everyone. Chapter 1864. Everyone in the group was probably shocked by Li Fei Yu's words. Li Fei Yu was the only one who had a very complicated journey, even though he had obtained a very simple one. It was easy to imagine how dangerous it was. Li Feiyu was directly teleported into the city of the dragon race. With his strength, he would have died if he met any dragon. But not only did he not die, he even walked out. However, he went in the opposite direction and went straight to the dragon palace. Now, it would be difficult for him to walk. Fanyi, F***CK, Brother Feiyu, you are really exciting. But don't panic, you have a hidden cycle stars now. This is a good item from the God Hunter activity pool. It is worth tens of thousands of points and is a treasure given by the ancestor god. It is definitely not something that the dragons can see through. You are now in the Dragon Palace. Since this is the palace of the Dragon City, it means that the strongest and nobles of the dragon race are here. There must be many treasures in this Dragon Palace. Danger and opportunity coexist for you now. Make good use of the hidden cycle stars and search for treasures in the Dragon Palace. These treasures may not be of use to you now, but you can exchange them for points. Then use the points to exchange for the hidden cycle stars talisman and continue to steal treasures. Yifan became more and more excited as he spoke. This was the nesting doll. Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. Ah, this could be done. 2 She Ancient Emperor Jade. Fan Yi, you are too mixed up? If this method fails, then all the treasures in the Dragon Palace will be stolen by Li Feiyu. Anyway, he may not be of use to those dragon race treasures. Once he gets them, he will sacrifice them for points. Ghostly, I don't think it will be that easy. Even if you use the hidden cycle stars, those dragons are not fools. Once they realize that something is stolen, they will be several times more alert. Even if they don't notice Brother Feiyu, they will definitely set up many restrictions. If you use this method once or twice, it is best to leave the Dragon Palace. This is to prevent any accidents. At this time, in the Dragon God Realm, in the Dragon Palace of the Dragon City. This Dragon City was called the 10,000 Dragon City. It was the center of the Dragon God Realm, just like the capital of the Douluo God Realm. It was the core of the Dragon God Realm. The strongest dragon race in the Dragon God Realm had gathered here. They were the most numerous and the strongest race in the Dragon God Realm. The core of the 10,000 Dragon City was the Dragon Palace. At the same time, in a corner of Dragon Palace, Hanli was hiding in a bush that was over 10 meters tall. To the dragons, this was nothing more than a bush. But to him, even this kind of grass was no less than a maze. I am but a mere golden core cultivator. Hanli didn't dare to move in fear of what was happening outside. A bitter smile appeared on his face. He wanted to come over and follow these big brothers in the group. He wanted to do odd jobs behind the scenes, pick up scraps, and broaden his horizons. Who would have thought that things would turn out this way? Was he directly teleported here? What is this place? Hanli thought to himself with trepidation. He had just seen a relatively small dragon that was only about 100 meters long. It was the weakest one he had ever seen. However, when it was playing in this fake mountain and fake forest, it could knock down a fake mountain that was over 100 feet tall with just a flick of its tail. Although it was called a fake mountain, in Hanli's eyes, it was more realistic than a real mountain. In any case, if that tail had landed on his body, Hanli reckoned that his soul would have flown off to meet the ancestor god. However, what they said seems to be somewhat reasonable. Hanli pondered. The heavenly cycle star concealment talisman was a product of the ancestor god. He carried it with him and foolishly walked around for half a day, but not a single dragon discovered him. Even after wandering around the Dragon Palace for a while, not a single dragon discovered him. A product of the ancestor god was trustworthy. Fanya's words are reasonable. Ghostly's words are also reasonable. Hanli pondered for a moment. He had clearly seen the point rules of the ancestor god had just announced. This was the Dragon Palace. There were bound to be a lot of treasures. If he could take advantage of this opportunity to obtain 1 or 2 treasures, regardless of whether it was for himself or for some points, this trip would be worth it. But the Heavenly Cycle Star Concealment Talisman has a time limit. I don't have much time left, and I am not familiar with this Dragon Palace, Hanli pondered. This Dragon Palace was incomparably large. He estimated that it was several times larger than the Scattered Star Seas. From the side, it could be seen that this Dragon God realm was extremely vast and had no boundaries. With such a large dragon palace, there were no roads. If he were to wander around randomly, he wouldn't be able to find any treasures. If I can understand the conversations of the dragons, perhaps Han Li's heart stirred. These dragons were conversing in a special dragon language that he couldn't understand at all. I wonder if there is a dragon language in the prize pool of the God Hunt event. Han Li immediately opened the prize pool of the God Hunt event in his mind and searched for the dragon language. Soon after, Han Li's eyes lit up. He actually found it. However, it wasn't the dragon language. Language resonance technique. Spiritual mantra. Once you learn this technique, you will be able to automatically transform the languages of the myriad races into your own consciousness. You will be able to comprehend the principles and automatically become proficient in the myriad races' languages. Apart from spiritual sense transmission, it only costs 5,000 points. Han Li exchanged for it without hesitation. He sat down cross-legged and immediately comprehended this technique. After a short moment, Han Li opened his eyes and several voices suddenly appeared in his mind. Our dragon race has already gathered 100,000 divine dragon soldiers. We're just waiting to slaughter our way into the Douluo divine world and take revenge for our dragon ancestor. His Majesty, the Golden Dragon Emperor, is a peerless dragon. His strength has already surpassed that of the dragon ancestor. I think that His Majesty alone will be able to sweep through the entire Dalu divine world. Speaking of which, it should be the 3 dragon lords' turn to receive the baptism of the myriad dragon pearl today, right? Before His Majesty, the Golden Dragon Emperor returned to the dragon god realm. The 3 dragon lords were peak powerhouses of our dragon god realm. After receiving the baptism of the myriad dragon pearl, their strength may be second only to His Majesty, the Golden Dragon Emperor. The myriad dragon pearl is a rare treasure that His Majesty, the Golden Dragon Emperor, brought back. It can bestow upon our dragon race the power of a god. Unfortunately, our bloodlines are weaker and our aptitude is lacking. We can only receive the baptism of the 1,000 dragon pearl. The low dragon roars turned into strands of thought and entered Han Li's mind. Han Li couldn't hear them before, but after learning the spiritual mantra, not only could Han Li hear them, he could even understand them. Myriad dragon pearl. Han Li caught the keyword. The myriad dragon pearl bestows upon the dragon race the power of a god. It is definitely a supreme treasure of the dragon palace. However, a treasure like that would definitely be heavily guarded. If I wanted to steal it, they would definitely be heavily guarded. It will be difficult to steal. Han Li muttered to himself for a moment. However, he didn't need to think to know that if he were to sacrifice this item, he would be able to obtain quite a few points. Previously, Ghostly had sacrificed several huge dragon corpses and a bone fragment to obtain a 5-digit number of points. The myriad dragon pearl would definitely be more than that. Huge risks were accompanied by huge rewards. Chapter 1865. I'll just go and take a look. Let's see what they look like first. Han Li thought. In the chat group, Li Fei Yu, everyone, I've thought it through. Now just wait for my good news. With that, he went offline. Everyone, Tu Shi Ancient Emperor Jade. I'm very curious now. I wonder what Big Brother Fei Yu will do. Fan Yi, don't worry. With the Ancestor God's protection, nothing will happen. Eternal Peace Pawn Shops Worker. Speaking of which, what about the 2 big brothers? The big brothers that Jing Tian was referring to were naturally Ying Zheng and Chao Chao. Just as he finished speaking, a message came from the crowd. No one can betray me. I've sacrificed 30 giant dragon corpses and received 2 million points. Everyone, Fan Yi, F***CK, Brother Chao, did you poke a dragon's nest? Where did you get so many giant dragon corpses? The points are so high, with an average of 40,000 per corpse. These giant dragons aren't simple. Ghostly, they're too strong. Tu Shi Ancient Emperor Jade. When we were still working hard to hide, the 2 big brothers were already killing giant dragons as if they were dogs. I'm envious. Eternal Peace Pawn Shops Worker. I wonder how many troops the 2 big brothers brought. This is too exaggerated. After waiting for them to discuss for a while, Chow Chow leisurely sent a message. No one can betray me, Sai. Even though I sacrificed so many giant dragon corpses, I also paid a huge price for that piece of land. Fan Yi, that's true. These giant dragons are so strong. Brother Chow, with your strength, you must have lost a lot of troops, right? No one can betray me. We did lose a lot of troops. A few dozen of my soldiers were injured. Fan Yi, everyone, Fan Yi. Brother Chow, it's wrong of you to be so full of yourself. Angry. JPG, you're not just picking up scraps, right? No one can betray me. I'll stop teasing you guys. It can't be called picking up scraps. No one can betray me. To be precise, I met the enemy of my enemy. I met two divine kings who claimed to be from the God Realm. They brought their friends to the Dragon God Realm to inquire about the Dragon God Realm. When we arrived, this God King and his friends had already been engaged in a fierce battle with these dragons for a long time. We will take advantage of the situation to surround these dragons and then kill them. We've been conserving our strength and honing our strength. Coupled with the fact that there are so many of us, those giant dragons were caught off guard and suffered heavy losses. Chow Chow spoke the truth. However, it was truly a loss. Only a few soldiers were injured. However, it wasn't dozens but thousands. Those dragons were not to be trifled with. Luckily, among the mystic cultivators that Chow Chow had brought, there were military musicians with strong healing abilities, so these soldiers would not die. However, the gains were far greater than the losses. Fan Yi, Holy F *********, God King of the Divine World. Old Brother Chow, how did you meet someone like this? Your fortuitous encounters are too amazing. Yeoman Pawn Shop's waiter. It seems like I'm the most miserable one now. She Ancient Emperor Jade. Don't be anxious, little fellow. Big brother, 10,000 years hasn't come out to speak yet. Borrow another 1,000 years from the heavens. Phew, I just came up. The situation here is still acceptable. And no one in the world can't let me down, sure. That God King from the God Realm you met didn't do anything to you? No one in the world can't let me down. What a joke. The moment I mentioned the name of the ancestor god, they only wanted to ally with us. How could they have any other thoughts? However, this God King from the God Realm is very strong. Just now, he and that friend of his took on dozens of giant dragons without being at a disadvantage. He's much stronger than us. Moreover, he's an expert who has grasped a powerful origin. Most importantly, he seems to know the Dragon God Realm better than us. In any case, he knows more than us. Now that we've gained 2 allies, we're planning to find a suitable place to settle down first. What about you guys? Borrow another 1,000 years from the heavens. I've already set up camp here. Air. To be precise, when we came out of the teleportation gate, our location is still okay. It's a valley filled with all kinds of spirit fruits and spirit ores. I think this place is not bad. Let's settle down first. One of the heads of the farmers here said that the soil here is very special and it can grow many rare crops. The surrounding spirit ores can also be used to forge even more powerful weapons. It just so happens that the 100 schools of thought have brought a few of them over. Therefore, I plan to plant some crops in this valley. We'll develop it first and let our great Qin soldiers improve their strength and change their weapons. Ingzheng casually typed out these few sentences. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. Even Chow Chow couldn't help but twitch a few times. He didn't even need to think to know that this fellow must have found a treasure land. They could just cultivate in this treasure land. In any case, the ancestor god didn't say how long this event dungeon would take. The longer they stayed here, the more they could feel the uniqueness of this world. Other than the rare resources they had never seen before, just the density of the spirit energy here was something their own world couldn't compare to. Therefore, even if they didn't explore and just cultivate it in this world, it was all earned. One had to know that among the points awarded by the ancestor god, cultivating and developing oneself could also earn some points. Moreover, this was a method with a long history. Once all kinds of resources were cultivated through cultivation, the points earned were also many. More importantly, this method of earning points was too safe. The risk was almost the lowest. Borrowing 10,000 years from the heavens. I'll take a picture of the exact location later. If you know where it is, feel free to come and seek refuge with me. I welcome you. However, although this valley is a treasure land, it seems that the surroundings are all dangerous. Wait for me to wipe out everything within 1,000 miles of this place. Hurry up and come over. Ingzheng finished his words heroically. Yangon pawn shop's worker. I want to be the first to come. This world is too dangerous. I feel that I won't be able to survive a single day. Sigh. I'm going to exchange for a heavenly cycle star concealment card and secretly steal dragon eggs. Everyone, please wish me good luck. Fanyi. Old brother Ingzheng. I want to seek refuge with you. Wait for me. To She Ancient Emperor Jade. I plan to stay in the underground warehouse and absorb the flames with Brother Xiao Yin before coming to find you. Ghostly, I can come over now. This swamp is too dangerous. I have to leave quickly. No one in the world can't let me down. I don't want to farm. I plan to find the city-states of the dragon race and use them to support me. Fanyi, it's not that you don't want to. You don't have a chance. Just like that, everyone had different encounters in the dragon god realm. Wang Feng quietly watched from the side of the ancestral realm. Not long after. Just like that, everyone had different encounters in the dragon god realm. Wang Feng quietly watched from the side of the ancestral realm. Not long after. Chapter 1866. Ancestral Realm. Wang Feng's eyes flickered with the primordial chaos source. The giant dragon that Gui Li had offered earlier seemed to have shrunk hundreds of times and was in the form of a model. It was shrouded and disintegrated in the primordial chaos source. A moment later, Wang Feng's eyes flickered. The primordial chaos source gradually disappeared. Wang Feng opened his palm, and a few lifelike giant dragon models appeared in his hand. These giant dragons were very interesting. Their appearance was 70% similar to the dragons of the desolate universe recorded in the Chaos Bell. They were not winged dragons. But Wang Feng knew that the dragon god's appearance back then was leaning towards those winged dragons. Wang Feng had seen the true body of the silver dragon before. It looked like that, but its entire body was silver and extremely beautiful. However, these giant dragons did not have wings, and their bodies were also very similar to the dragons of the desolate world. This was interesting. The dragon god realm was created by the dragon god back then, and the dragons here were all the descendants of the dragon god. Even if the dragon god had 9 sons, each of them was different. Coupled with time, there would also be mutations. But wasn't the difference too big? Wang Feng could only find 30% of the dragon god's shadow on these giant dragons. And this 30% was on the pair of dragon claws. In fact, Long Xie's body was 90% similar to the dragon god, but its entire body was blood red. And in the Douluo divine world, there are also records of the dragon god, from its body to its abilities. Looks like this has a lot to do with the 10,000 Dragons universe. Wang Feng used the primordial chaos source to analyze the structure of these giant dragons. From their bodies to their abilities, he analyzed them one by one, apart from finding something wrong with their bodies. In terms of abilities, there was also a huge difference. These 4 giant dragons were all golden. Other than their claws that were similar to the dragon gods, their other forms were very similar to the 5-clawed golden dragon. And in the desolate world, the 5-clawed golden dragon was one of the 4 divine dragons of the dragon race. In terms of abilities, these giant dragons were all very powerful. Their bodies were almost comparable to the demon gods of the dark demon world. But their other abilities were much weaker, and they did not possess the power of origin. But with such a powerful body, a body comparable to a mountain, and a Vajra defense, they were already able to surpass countless lives. CS said that this dragon god also came from the 10,000 Dragons universe. However, the corpses of these dragons that had been offered up had been separated from the genes of the dragon god. The only thing that could change this was the 10,000 Dragons cosmos. However, so many things have changed. Wang Feng pondered for a few seconds. I wonder how the 10,000 Dragons universe changed these dragon god descendants. In fact, the material value of these giant dragon corpses was very small to him. They were not even worth a few thousand points. but Wang Feng gave ghostly tens of thousands of points. The key was that the information contained within the giant dragon itself was very special. In the ancestral realm, there were a few giant dragons among the innate demonic beasts. Later on, many dragons were born using the patterns of the primordial races in the primal chaos. These giant dragon corpses, Wang Feng pondered for a moment. The patterns of the billions of races in the chaos were not simple patterns. Instead, it was a genetic secret. If one could comprehend the patterns within, it would be equivalent to comprehending the entirety of this race. The demonic beast, Dao, reincarnation, and the demonic beast clan were created by Wang Feng based on this point. He seemed to have thought of something. This is such a great physical body. It's not worth it to waste it like this. Wang Feng waved his hand. A light flashed on his fingertip. In an instant, these giant dragon models were like toys that had been connected to a power source. They gently twisted, and a pair of red candle-like dragon eyes slowly opened. Go. Let's see if you imposters are more powerful than the demonic beasts I created based on the Chaos Bell's primordial demonic beast totem. Wang Feng muttered. He simply bestowed intelligence to these dead dragons. He allowed them to have the strength and wisdom they had when they were alive, but they were controlled by Wang Feng. Ancestral Realm. Mount Tianyao. Roar. The roar that shook the clouds spread throughout the entire Mount Tianyao. The clouds in the sky dispersed like waves. Several huge dragons soared down from the sky as if they had descended from the sky, emitting a monstrous, ferocious aura. At the same time, a few dragons of the same size quickly flew out of the Mount Tianyao. Wang Feng watched indifferently from above the clouds. It had been some time since the demonic beast clan was created. These demonic beasts had long lifespans, and their cultivation speed was not slow at all. In this mountain range, Wang Feng remembered that there were a few dragons that were born in this place, since they were dragons created from the patterns inside the Chaos Bell. The first batch that Wang Feng created back then was naturally one of the few most powerful dragon species among them. Torch Dragon, Bingyi, Five-Clawed Golden Dragon, Winged Dragon. The one in the Mount Tianyao was a winged dragon. There were actually two types of winged dragons in the original primordial world. The first type of winged dragon was born from the ancestors of two flying animals in the primordial world. It was unique. It controlled clouds, rain, lightning, and rivers. It was a true heavenly dragon god. There was also another type that was cultivated by the ordinary dragon race. Its final form was the appearance of a true dragon, but it had a pair of wings. The one that Wang Feng created was naturally the first type, because the genes in the pattern were the simplest. Although the other pattern was easy to create, it required a long time to cultivate to evolve into such a powerful dragon. Wang Feng watched from the clouds. The winged dragon came out of the mountain and saw a few decent dragons descending from the sky. Naturally, it was not afraid at all. It faced them head-on and fought against them alone. The outcome of the battle was far beyond Wang Feng's expectations. The winged dragon killed the dragons that Wang Feng had temporarily regained their intelligence in a crushing manner. The reason why it was unexpected was because in Wang Feng's perception, the strength of the winged dragon was only slightly stronger than these dragons. Even if it won, it should be a Pyrrhic victory. However, the truth was that it was indeed a crushing defeat. After those dragons regained their intelligence, they were fearful during the battle, as if they were extremely afraid of the winged dragon. Their strength dropped by 50%. Wang Feng muttered. It seems that this is a pure suppression of bloodline. These dragons are suppressed so miserably in their bloodlines. This was only the winged dragon. If these dragons were to fight with a real five-clawed golden dragon, who knew how suppressed they would be? The five-clawed golden dragon that Wang Feng created was not here. It had already flown to the human race. It was probably because there were some differences within the demonic beast race. As for the human race, after the human emperor, several powerful tribes were separated. In terms of ideology, there was a huge change. However, the only faith did not change because of this. Even if Wang Feng did not pay attention to it, He could feel it from the power of faith produced by these races. A few days later, more corpses of giant dragons were offered as offerings, and Wang Feng could see it. In terms of shape and ability, these dragons' corpses were only slightly similar to the dragon gods. But in other aspects, they were very similar to the dragons of the primitive world. There was even a dragon's corpse that was somewhat similar to the winged dragon of the heavenly demon mountain. It also had the appearance of a true dragon, but it had a pair of wings. This corpse was also offered by Cao Cao's side. It seemed to be killed by the Dragon God Realm's Dragon Emperor clan. Dragon Emperor was the Golden Dragon King's title after returning to the Dragon God Realm. The Dragon Emperor clan was the dragon race that had been transformed by the 10,000 Dragons Pearl. They were the dragon race that the Golden Dragon King valued the most. Chapter 1867. Wang Feng immediately carried out a deduction and analysis, and discovered that this giant dragon corpse of the Dragon Emperor clan contained some rain dragon genes. At this point, Wang Feng roughly understood the situation in the Dragon God Realm and the myriad dragons universe. Although he didn't know everything, he could guess most of it. He knew everything. Wang Feng didn't plan on directly interfering with their progress in the Dragon God Realm. Now that he had bestowed them with so many contribution points and the experience they had gained in the Dragon God Realm, it was more than enough to increase the strength of these children of destiny by a large margin. At the very least, they would start to come into contact with the great Tao of origin. Among them, the one who took the most risks was actually the weakest. That was Han Li. In the chat group, Li Feiyu. Everyone, I'm getting closer and closer to the myriad dragon pearl. Next, I just need to steal it and offer it to the ancestor god. I believe that this will be worth it. To Shi Ancient Emperor Jade. Wow, big brother Feiyu, you finally appeared again. It's been a long time since you disappeared. How is the situation now? Following Han Li's appearance, everyone in the group sent their greetings and curiosity. Fan Yi, what is the myriad dragon pearl? It sounds very powerful. Is it a treasure in the dragon palace? Eternal Peace Pawn Shop Assistant. With my many years of pawning experience, this is definitely a treasure among treasures. People can't betray me. Li Feiyu, I've already taken down several cities. If you fail, directly head south from Dragon City and come to a place called the Hidden Dragon Pond to find me. I guarantee your safety. Ghostly, you still have to be careful. The closer you get, the more dangerous it is. Another 10,000 years from the heavens. That's right. I've already completely occupied this valley. Everyone's cultivation speed is increasing rapidly. When the time comes, I plan to directly attack the Dragon Palace with Brother Under Heaven. Li Feiyu, many thanks, everyone. Now that I'm only one step away from the Myriad Dragon Pearl, I'm a bit nervous. Fan Yi, since that's the case, tell us, what have you been doing during this period of time? Also, what is the Myriad Dragon Pearl? Han Li muttered to himself for a few seconds and began to recover. Li Feiyu, didn't you kill many huge dragons before? As far as I know, those dragons weren't that powerful in the beginning. According to the information I collected from the conversations of the dragons in the Dragon Palace these days, I analyzed it and found that it is at least 10 times weaker. At the same time, the Dragon God Realm wasn't originally like this. It would be much smaller than it is now. All of this is because of the 10,000 Dragon Pearl brought by the current Dragon Emperor. Hearing this, Yi Fan was enlightened. Li Feiyu said this 10,000 Dragon Pearl changed the Dragon God Realm, and at the same time, it changed many dragons. He didn't know what kind of power this Myriad Dragon Pearl possessed, but it was able to transform these dragons into such powerful beings. The ones you killed before were all ordinary dragons. Those dragons were all transformed from the 1,000 Dragon Pearl. Only dragons recognized by the Dragon Emperor will be granted the right to be modified by the Myriad Dragon Pearl. This 10,000 Dragon Pearl is extremely powerful. It is located in the Ascending Dragon Palace Hall of the Dragon Palace. The Ascending Dragon Palace Hall is surrounded by the Dragon Emperor clan's colossal dragon guards that have been modified by the 10,000 Dragon Pearl. It can be said that it is extremely difficult to enter. No, that's impossible. With that said, Han Li's tone was very certain. If you want to enter, you must be personally led by the Dragon Emperor. Even if you have the Dragon Emperor's decree, it is impossible. The clerk of the Eternal Peace asked, "Then how do you get in?" Everyone was also curious. The 10,000 Dragon Pearl was so powerful that it could be said to be the root of the Dragon God realm. How did Li Feiyu get it? Li Feiyu said, "These days I have been racking my brains and finally thought of a way. The method is very simple. Although I am currently using the Heavenly Cycle Star Concealment, it can only isolate my aura. It can't make me disappear from this world. The Ascending Dragon Palace is airtight, so I can't enter at all. At this time, I don't have many points left, so it is very difficult to exchange for other things to help me. In a dragon palace, there's no way I can kill these colossal dragons. The other treasures are also guarded by extremely powerful dragons, so it is impossible for me to steal them." Hearing this, everyone pondered in their hearts. How could they enter the Ascending Dragon Palace? Steal the 10,000 Dragon Pearl? Later, when I was chanting scriptures for the Ancestor God, I thought of a way. That is, I wrote a letter in the dragon race's language and handed it to the Dragon Emperor's bedroom. I also told him that I would come tonight to steal the 10,000 Dragon Pearl. Because the Heavenly Cycle Star Concealment has completely isolated my aura, even the Dragon Emperor can't detect it. Therefore, no dragon in the entire Dragon Palace can detect me. The Dragon Emperor was not surprised either. When he received the letter, he was disdainful at first. But then, he began to gather all the guards of the Dragon Palace and surrounded the Ascending Dragon Palace with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Hearing this, the clerk of the Eternal Peace said, "Then the Dragon Emperor was frightened by a letter? That can't be. Does the Dragon Emperor not have any intelligence at all?" Fan Yi said, No, little clerk, think about it. If you're the Dragon Emperor." A letter suddenly appeared in his bedroom, but he did not notice it. Not only did he not notice it, the entire Dragon Palace did not notice it either. What do you think? He would definitely think that the person who delivered the letter could come and go as he pleased in his huge Dragon Palace. How scary would that be? If you were the Dragon Emperor and a mysterious guest who could come and go as he pleased said that he wanted to steal the 10,000 Dragon Pearl, wouldn't you panic? The clerk of the Eternal Peace said, "Holy shit, it seems like it. Brother Feiyu, you're really something." But your letter directly increased the strength of the Ascending Dragon Palace's defenses by several levels. Can you still go in like this? Even if you go in, you won't be able to touch the 10,000 Dragon Pearl, right? Li Feiyu said, "That's right. The Ascending Dragon Palace's defenses have been strengthened. But we already know that there are dragons in the Dragon Palace. So, if the Ascending Dragon Palace's defenses are strengthened, then it is inevitable that the defenses of the other places will be weakened, and there won't even be any dragons guarding them. Because to the Dragon Emperor and the Dragon God realm, the 10,000 Dragon Pearl is countless times more important than any treasure. Therefore, I took advantage of this opportunity to loot the Dragon Emperor's palace and found several precious treasures. I didn't even think about it, and directly exchanged them for points. The treasures in the Dragon Emperor's bedroom are actually not very valuable, but they can still be exchanged for a lot of points. After that, I went to the other palaces of the Dragon Palace and plundered some treasures until I exchanged them for 200,000 points. I didn't hesitate to exchange for the Universal Star Concealment Talisman's superior talisman, Universal Star Concealment, which is worth 200,000 points. It's extremely expensive. This talisman is amazing. It can hide everything, come and go without a trace, and it can pass through space and time. It's amazing, but it can only last for about 100 breaths, and it's limited to 1 purchase. After exchanging for it, I immediately used it. You might not know, but during the time I was sending messages to you, I had already quietly entered the Ascending Dragon Palace. And now, I have this 10,000 Dragon Pearl in my hands. At the same time, ding, Li Feiyu uploaded a picture. Everyone. Awesome. The clerk of the Eternal Peace said, "Good fellow, Brother Feiyu, your method is a little strong. A single letter settled everything. How did you think of it?" Li Feiyu said, when I was thinking of a way before, wasn't I chanting scriptures and praying to the ancestor god? Vaguely, the ancestor god seemed to give me a hint. When I came back to my senses, I didn't remember it. But I thought of this method. Everyone. Chapter 1868. Dragon God Realm, inside the Ascending Dragon Palace. Hanli wore a somewhat excited expression. At this moment, he was invisible and formless, surrounded by countless powerful dragons. Hanli was unable to describe the size of these dragons. Even the interior of the Ascending Dragon Palace was comparable to an entire city to Hanli. He raised his head and saw countless dragons soaring in the sky. Within the hollow hall, there were countless dragon eyes staring at this place. On top of a square platform, there was a pearl as resplendent as a star floating in the air. Even from below, Hanli could see that the pearl seemed to contain all things flowing within it. A speck of starlight was slightly spinning like the universe. Hanli picked up the myriad dragon pearl and took a deep breath. Almost at the same time, the dragons let out fierce roars. The moment the myriad dragon pearl left its original position, the entire dragon palace seemed to boil. However, Hanli was very calm. The heavenly cycle divine concealment was a one-time use talisman. Hanli didn't know if this talisman existed in the immortal realm, but it was truly terrifying. A single use would cost over 200,000 points. A one-time use. It was impossible to use such a huge consumption without an equivalent value. Almost as soon as he touched the 10,000 dragon pearl, the entire 10,000 dragon pearl disappeared. No matter how the countless dragons outside roared, it didn't affect it in the slightest. Hanli was even in the mood to take a picture of the myriad dragon pearl and send it to the group. Time is almost up. It's time for me to become powerful. Hanli chuckled. To be honest, he didn't expect to be teleported to the Dragon City. He originally thought that he would die an untimely death in the Dragon God Realm. He didn't expect that he would encounter such a fortuitous encounter. This myriad dragon pearl doesn't seem to be anything special. Hanli glanced at the myriad dragon pearl. When it was placed on top of the platform, he felt something. But when it fell into his hand, he found that he didn't feel anything. There was no change in energy either. It's just an ordinary pearl. Hanli coughed twice. He was too weak and couldn't feel the power of the myriad dragon pearl. As expected, a treasure of this level was completely useless in his hands. But could it be that this myriad dragon pearl is just an ordinary pearl? Hanli thought with some unease. Was it just a trick that the Dragon Emperor used to deceive and win over the dragons? In reality, it was just a symbol. Cough, cough, that shouldn't be the case. But if that was really the case, then wouldn't he have suffered a huge loss? Hanli hesitated for a moment before looking at the messages in the group. Fan Yi, this is the 10,000 dragons pearl? Why does it look so ordinary like a luminous pearl? Hanli frowned upon hearing this. The two She Ancient Emperor's Jade said, I can't see anything special about it. But since this thing has created so many powerful giant dragons, it shouldn't be something that we can see through, right? Hanli let out a sigh of relief. Yeoman Pawn's waiter, I can't tell either. He should be very powerful. My eyes can only appraise the treasures of the mortal world. I really can't see through these things. No one in the world can betray me. Only the ancestor god can personally appraise such a treasure. We are not strong enough yet, so there's no point in commenting on ourselves. That makes sense. Hanli wholeheartedly agreed. Another 10,000 years from the heavens. Cough, cough. It feels like the luminous pearl in my palace. Little friend Feiyu, you should offer this item to the ancestor god and let him appraise it. Ghostly, my intuition tells me that this item should be very special, awkward. I can't see through it either, seeing this. Hanli calculated the time that the heavenly cycle divine concealment would take and offered the item to the ancestor god without hesitation. At almost the same time, a crisp notification sound rang out in the chat group. Dragon God Realm Event Instance. Li Feiyu obtained the 10,000 Dragons Pearl and changed the trajectory of the Dragon God Realm. He received 500,000 points. Offering the 10,000 Dragons Pearl, he received 800,000 points, a total of 1,300,000 points. Hanli stared at the string of numbers, and his breathing gradually became heavier. 1,300,000 points. This 10,000 Dragons Pearl was actually worth 800,000 points. This was different from the items that the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign and Li Feiyu had offered. Those items were given by the ancestor god out of consideration for the other party's intentions. Their value might not be high, but this item was worth 800,000 points. Furthermore, this was something that Hanli easily obtained. 800,000 points meant that the value of this 10,000 Dragons Pearl was extremely high. What was even more frightening was that it was worth 500,000 points and changed the trajectory of the Dragon God realm. After obtaining the 10,000 Dragons Pearl, these huge dragons would lose their source of strength. I wonder how angry the Dragon Monarch would be. I'm leaving. Hanli was extremely excited. This 10,000 Dragons Pearl was indeed powerful. It was actually worth so many points. Hanli didn't say anything else and used the remaining time of the talisman to disappear. I'm rich. At this moment, the group was also boiling with excitement. Fanny, 6666, this is too strong. Is this what luck is? Brother Feiyu is the weakest on our side. But this 1,300,000 points, I feel that it will be difficult for us. She Ancient Emperor Jade, we can't compare. It seems that Brother Feiyu will definitely be the first in the points ranking. He should have returned to his world by now. Eternal Peace Pawn Shops Worker, 1,300,000 points. The Ancestor God is so generous. People can't turn their backs on me. I led the army and fought so hard to open a path of blood. Now, I barely managed to accumulate a few 100,000 points. This guy just moved a little and got 1,300,000 points. Everyone could almost see the corner of his mouth twitching. Ghostly, I feel that it's all right. As long as I'm content, another 10,000 years from the heavens. Well said, as long as you're content. A mere 1,300,000 points. It's fine. F*CK, soldiers of the Great Qin Empire, follow me and kill. Everyone, they were probably a bit agitated. Everyone in the group was in high spirits, ancestral realm. Master, how many points did you give this time? Aren't you going to bleed a lot? Yin Mingyao asked in a low voice. Bleed a lot? Wang Feng was dumbfounded. To think that you're the heavenly Dao. Let me tell you, in any event, the one who earns the most money is never the players involved. It's the mastermind behind the event. Bleed a lot? Wang Feng held the 10,000 Dragons Pearl in his hand and smiled faintly. It's just that you don't know about this item. Isn't this an item from the Dragon God realm? Yin Mingyao asked. No matter how powerful it is, it's useless to you, Master. I scanned this pearl and sensed it. The structure of the laws inside is only effective for the dragon race. But Master doesn't need this item to strengthen the dragons you created in the ancestral realm. Then what use does it have for you, Master? Yin Mingyao was still very curious. FPZW. After obtaining the creation Jade Butterfly Fragment, Wang Feng had already tried to repair it. It was impossible to do the same as when he cultivated the Chaos Green Lotus and the Pangu Axe. This was because even though the Primal Chaos Green Lotus was incomplete, it lacked a true soul. The power it contained was not lacking. It was only because his true soul was missing that those abilities and forms could not be formed. It was the same for the Pangu Axe. The will to split open the heavens was hidden in the incomplete true soul. Once the restoration was complete, he would be able to obtain it. The Good Fortune Jade Disc was relatively unique. Its true soul was not missing. Instead, everything was missing. This included the power of the 3,000 great Daos of the primitive universe. Everything was true. It was just a fragment, a broken fragment. Wang Feng was certain that there were still quite a number of such fragments. Therefore, it was not the only one. The power of the great Daos inside naturally dissipated with the fragments. However, the 10,000 Dragons Pearl contains some power of the great Daos. The 10,000 Dragons universe, Wang Feng muttered slowly. It seemed that after the War of the Gods, or even before the War of the Gods, he had to find time to take a look. Yin Mingyao bent over and leaned against Wang Feng's palm, looking at the creation jade disc at a close distance. Master, is this thing still useful to you? The power of the great Daos. Yin Mingyao muttered. What power of the great Daos is it? The power of the great Daos of the primitive universe is naturally the origin of the universe, Wang Feng said indifferently. In the universe, there are countless great Daos and countless origins. As for the 3,000 great Daos in the creation jade disc, the so-called 3,000 great Daos are just imaginary numbers. In fact, it refers to infinite great Daos. As for the exact number, I don't know. However, the creation jade disc is a chaos treasure from the beginning of the primitive universe. The 3,000 great Daos contained in it refer to the most primitive 3,000 great Daos in that universe. Speaking of this, Wang Feng paused. It can point to the supreme great Daos of the universe. In short, the 3,000 great Daos in the creation jade disc contain the universe's will that can be touched. Yin Mingyao immediately understood. It can be said that the universe's will, that the universe's life forms that transcended the initial cycle in the primitive universe have basically comprehended and merged from the 3,000 great Daos of the creation jade disc. So, hearing this, Yin Mingyao asked tentatively, if you repair the creation jade disc, Master, you can have more universe's will? In theory, it's not wrong. Wang Feng nodded, but in reality, it was naturally very difficult. The universe's will was not something that could be obtained casually. Even in a universe as strong as the deity system, most of the heavenly gods still relied on the projection of their will. They were not the true universe's will. Those who truly had the universe's will were absolutely the best among the heavenly gods. Even the supreme gods. It was the same for the universe's will. Not to mention 2 or more universe's wills. Just the amount of source energy required was enough to stump them. The creation jade disc was the same. There were countless great Daos in it. It was unknown where they were scattered. When the primitive universe was destroyed, the 3 primal chaos treasures disappeared and shattered. The primal chaos lotus and Pangu axe were still fine. The creation jade disc was shattered into countless great Dao fragments, but they might not all be like these fragments. For example, the myriad dragon pearl contained the power of a great Dao, but compared to the entire creation jade disc, it was almost negligible. The current restoration was only able to make the shard breathe a little bit. It was unknown how far away it was from a true repair, not to mention its effect. Fortunately, there was this myriad dragon universe. Wang Feng was certain that there were still great Daos scattered from the creation jade disc in the myriad dragon universe. Since the myriad dragon universe was able to bestow the myriad dragon pearl to a mere dragon god realm, there must be many myriad dragon pearls formed from the power of a great Dao. So, from this point of view, the value of this item is extremely high. Wang Feng smiled as he looked at the information in the chat group. The value of the information contained within is immeasurable. It is only right to give Han Li so many points. Chapter 1870. Several days later, the entire Dragon God realm shook violently after the 10,000 Dragon Pearl disappeared. So, this is the end of the Dragon God realm? Long Xie clicked his tongue in wonder as he stood on top of a towering mountain peak and gazed at the Dragon God realm from afar. Judging from the density of the spirit energy here, that should be the case. Tang Xin closed his eyes and sensed the changes in the energy of heaven and earth. They didn't know about the 10,000 Dragon Pearl before this. It was the emperor with the surname Chao who told them about it. Speaking of which, he felt a little ashamed. That emperor's allies aren't simple. Long Xie clicked his tongue. We've been following them for the past few days, and it's like a hurricane sweeping through all the dragon caves in the Dragon God realm. A dragon cave was actually a city where a giant dragon resided. However, those cities were too big, so they thought it was more appropriate to call them dragon caves. Since the 10,000 dragon pearl was given to us by the 10,000 dragons cosmos, it can't be a simple treasure. The change in the energy density of the dragon god realm proves that the emperor's words are true. Tang San frowned slightly. Without the 10,000 dragon pearl, the dragon god realm has lost its source. It seems like a good thing. What are you worried about, Tang San? Long Xie asked. Is it the 10,000 dragons cosmos? That's right. Tang San placed the Azura blood sword in front of him. The 10,000 dragon pearl has been stolen, but it's a divine item from the 10,000 dragons cosmos. How can I just sit back and watch? It's very likely that the 10,000 dragons cosmos will send their own experts here. This isn't good news for them. Long Xie scratched his head. But don't they have an ancestor god behind them? What are you worried about? These two big shots use the dragon god realm as their playground. It's not like the Douluo god realm will suffer any harm if they fight. If Boss is here, he might be plotting something in secret already. Why are you still scowling here? That's true, given Brother Feng's temperament. Tang San nodded in agreement. However, what I'm saying is that the dragon god realm is the dragon god realm's enemy. The dragon god realm is our enemy, so we can help them depending on the situation. That makes sense. Long Xie pondered for a moment. At this moment, several figures flew over from afar. Everyone, we will be heading to Dragon City to meet up with my ally. Is there anything else? Cao Cao asked with a smile. Li Feiyu's theft of the 10,000 dragon pearl was equivalent to weakening the dragon god realm imperceptibly. Naturally, this greatly reduced the danger they faced in the dragon god realm and the difficulty of the activity. Next, the points naturally flowed into his account like water. It would be beneficial to every member of the group. Long Xie and Tang San looked at each other and voiced their concerns. After listening to them, Cao Cao pondered for a moment and said, "What the two of you said is indeed something we did not think of. However, just how strong was the 10,000 dragons universe? This is an unknown. Prime Minister, this is not an unknown factor. That 10,000 dragon pearl can change the strength of the dragon race in the entire dragon god realm. It can even change the level of this realm. It's no ordinary treasure. The 10,000 dragons cosmos was able to take out such a treasure. At the very least, they are much stronger than us and our allies." The strategist paused for a moment. Now that the 10,000 dragon pearl has been lost in the dragon god realm, the dragon monarch of the dragon god realm will definitely report this matter to the 10,000 dragons universe. It is very likely that the 10,000 dragons universe has already sent experts over. Your Majesty, before your allies stole the pearl, I wanted to say this. Once the 10,000 dragon pearl is stolen, the difficulty of our attack will decrease. The strength of these giant dragons will also decrease greatly. However, we will definitely provoke stronger enemies, unless the ancestor god personally intervenes. But the ancestor god will not personally participate in this activity. The strategist stopped speaking at this point. Cao Cao began to think. At this moment, he could only see the distant horizon. A wisp of azure light stretched across the entire sky, as if it had split the sky into two. Roar! A terrifying dragon roar came from where the streak of light had split the sky. Cao Cao abruptly covered his ears and looked forward with a bit of shock in his eyes. What is that? The dragon roar seemed to be able to reach the depths of one's soul. Waves of sound came and turned into a huge, tsunami-like force that engulfed everything. Cao Cao and the others, who were standing on a mountain peak, couldn't even stabilize themselves under the pressure of this huge wave of air. This isn't good. Cao Cao, who flew out, exploded with a burst of golden light in midair. His body was covered in layers of destructive golden light. He was barely able to resist it. At the same time, in a corner outside Dragon City. What the hell is this? Han Li was like a catkin in the wind. This huge wave of air almost killed him. Fortunately, he had exchanged for the Sky Tortoise Divine Armor that was worth tens of thousands of points from the event's prize pool in time. He hurriedly put it on and barely managed to withstand it. He didn't even have time to investigate the other functions of this divine armor that was worth tens of thousands of points. He looked at the blue light in the sky from the corner of his eyes as he quickly flew away. But in the next moment, Hanli felt as if the space around him had frozen. There was no longer any wind. He looked down and saw that the scenery around him had become inanimate. It was motionless. He was greatly astonished. In the sky, a dragon's roar that caused the entire dragon god realm to tremble sounded. A huge dragon of five-colored divine light flew out from the blue light that split open the sky. No, I have to quickly escape from here. Hanli broke out in a cold sweat. He had over 1,000,000 points now. There was bound to be a way. It's a pity that the event's prize pool doesn't have anything that can directly cause great damage. Otherwise, I would be able to exchange my points for something that could directly destroy Dragon City. Hanli thought to himself. The items in the event's prize pool that were worth over 1,000,000 points were all very terrifying. Hanli glanced at them and found that he couldn't directly use most of them. For example, origin power. Even if he exchanged for it, he couldn't use it. His cultivation was too low. Even if he had over 100,000 points, it would be difficult to use useful cultivation techniques, divine abilities, and treasures. He could only use those one-time consumable treasures because they had no limits. But they could only be used once. It wasn't worth it. Furthermore, there weren't any items in the prize pool that could directly cause great damage. It would be great if there were such items, Hanli sighed. He reckoned that even if there were, they would only be single-use items. I can only run now, but it seems that even the space around me has been sealed. Hanli glanced at the five-color divine dragon that descended from the sky. With just a glance, Hanli's mind was shaken and he felt dizzy. And this was under the condition that he was wearing the divine armor that could block most of the pressure. I'm afraid I can escape. Hanli broke out in a cold sweat. Chapter 1871. Hanli broke out in a cold sweat. The cycle concealment effect had already disappeared. That item was extremely valuable, and there was a limit to exchange. He could only exchange for it once. Hanli could actually find several other treasures with similar effects to the cycle concealment effect. However, those weren't one-time use items, and their value was even higher. They were permanent supreme treasures. But he couldn't use them. Those treasures required a certain amount of strength. They weren't things he could use as a golden core cultivator. At the same time, in the chat group, following the sudden upheaval in the Dragon God realm, Fanny, damn, what's going on? Did you guys feel it? I'm at old brother Ing Zhang's place, and I can feel an extremely powerful aura in this valley. What is this? 2. She ancient jade. Big brother Xiao Yin and I just came out of the cave, and we were forced back by this aura. We also saw a shadow in the distance. Is it from Dragon City? Li Feiyu, what happened? Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. I just stole the dragon egg. I was about to say that I should run away first, but I was inexplicably stopped by this terrifying aura. Then the 2 huge dragons returned. Oh no, brothers, I don't think I'll live for long this time. Ghostly, I'm afraid something happened at Dragon City. The Myriad Dragon Pearl was stolen. It's not that simple. Little worker, if you have any points left, quickly use them and escape. I should be very close to your place. When the time comes, we can team up. Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker, Big Brother Ghostly, quickly come and help me. No one can betray me. Everyone, the situation isn't good. According to our speculations and the God King's suggestion, the Myriad Dragon Pearl was stolen by little brother Feiyu. However, the Myriad Dragon Pearl is too important to the Dragon God realm. Furthermore, it was given to the Dragon Monarch by the Myriad Dragons Cosmos. Now that the Myriad Dragon Pearl has been stolen, the Dragon Monarch must have reported this matter to the Myriad Dragons Cosmos. If I'm not mistaken, the aura you're sensing right now should belong to a powerhouse from the 10,000 Dragons Cosmos. Chow Chow's words immediately shocked everyone in the group. They could feel how powerful the aura was. The Myriad Dragons Cosmos. They didn't understand. Since such a powerful treasure like the 10,000 Dragon Pearl came from the 10,000 Dragon Cosmos, it meant that the 10,000 Dragon Cosmos was not simple. Fanyi, does this mean that the difficulty of our event dungeon has increased? Everyone, too, she ancient Emperor Jade. It should have leveled up after the 10,000 Dragon Pearl was stolen. I feel like the difficulty should have dropped from hard to normal. Now it should be hell mode, right? Isn't it a little excessive? Great Ancestor God, are you there? Fanyi, little you, can't you be a little more confident? Why would he call the Ancestor God when he encountered a little difficulty? What a good-for-nothing. No one can betray me. Fanyi is right. We can't rely on the Ancestor God for everything. We are the Ancestor God's believers. If we encounter any difficulties, we should try to solve them ourselves. We can't just look for the Ancestor God whenever we encounter a slightly stronger enemy. At this moment, Hanli went online. Ding! Li Feiyu has uploaded a video. Please download it and watch it. Li Feiyu said, "Everyone, the situation is not good. I'm currently near Dragon City, but I don't know if you can feel it. The space here has been sealed. In the sky above Dragon City, there is a huge dragon covered in 5-color divine light. I don't know where it came from. Its aura is too terrifying. I feel like my soul is about to collapse just by looking at it. Currently, I can find several treasures that can allow me to escape from here. However, even if I exchange for these treasures with my current strength, I can't use them at all. What should I do now?" You could take a look at the video. It was taken from my first-person perspective. You should be able to feel it more directly. Everyone immediately downloaded it. After a few seconds, Fanyi, Ancestor God, Great Ancestor God. Everyone, to she ancient Emperor Jade. Fanyi, didn't you say before Shao Sun could finish her words? Fanyi immediately sent a message. Don't speak. Didn't you see the video? That huge dragon covered in 5-color divine light is on the same level. The entire world has been sealed. Quickly check if your teleportation gate is still there. F*CK. There's no need to check. Old brother Ing Zhang's teleportation gate has already been sealed. It must have been sealed by that 5-color divine dragon. We can't even go back now. Everyone, just as Fan finished speaking, the others had also realized it. The teleportation gate was bound to them. Of course, they couldn't return as they wished. However, if they wanted to forcefully leave, for example, giving up on this event, they could do so. Otherwise, they could only return after the event ended. However, they couldn't summon their teleportation gate now. This meant that they couldn't forcefully leave. This was too King weird. Fanya's instant cowardice made everyone unable to hold back their laughter. However, they also felt a chill in their hearts. This wasn't a joke. The world cannot betray me. Little brother Feiyu, you said that you can exchange for a treasure to leave this place. Then, is there such a powerful treasure that can destroy that 5-color divine dragon? Perhaps we can give it a try. Cao Cao's words immediately stunned everyone. Fanyi, old brother Cao, you are too daring. That 5-color divine dragon shouldn't be the same as us. How is it possible? Even if there is such a treasure, we can't use it at all. The world cannot betray me. The Ancestor God hasn't replied yet. This means that we can deal with that 5-color divine dragon. Otherwise, the Ancestor God wouldn't have remained silent. The Ancestor God is benevolent and kind to us believers. He won't watch us die. As long as he doesn't say anything, it means that we can break out of this situation. It's also possible that this is the Ancestor God's arrangement. He is here to train us. Otherwise, he wouldn't have reminded little brother Feiyu to steal the 10,000 Dragons Pearl. Think about it. Isn't that the case? If we can work together to kill that 5-color divine dragon from the 10,000 Dragons universe, we won't let down our status as the Ancestor God's believers. We can't embarrass the Ancestor God. When everyone heard this, they felt that this made some sense. Li Feiyu, now that you mention it, I feel that it is very possible. Wait, let me see. With my current points, let me think. Perhaps we can give it a try. At the level of 500,000 points, there are many powerful treasures that can destroy the world. But how should we gather them now? This is a problem. just as the chat group was in a heated discussion. Dragon City, Dragon Palace. The Golden Dragon King, no, the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon God realm, had transformed into a half-human, half-dragon form. He had a cautious expression as he half-knelt in the void. Behind him, all the Dragon Clan powerhouses in the Dragon Palace were doing the same, for the Dragon Emperor to welcome them in such a manner. Trash. Golden Dragon King, you have the 10,000 dragons pearl bestowed by the Emperor of the Mystic Dragon Emperor. You are much stronger than the true dragon in your previous life. How could you allow the 10,000 dragons pearl to be stolen? In the sky, the five-color divine dragon spoke in a cold dragon language. The 10,000 dragons pearl is the most precious treasure of the 10,000 dragons universe. If it weren't for your talent, you wouldn't even have the right to meet the Emperor of the Mystic Dragon Emperor. Now that the 10,000 dragons pearl has been stolen, even if you were to be cut into pieces, it wouldn't be enough. The five-color divine dragon's voice became even colder. The Golden Dragon King below did not dare to say a word. After a while, the five-color divine dragon's voice softened a little. The Golden Dragon King hurriedly said, "Supreme Dragon God, I know that the theft of the 10,000 dragons pearl is a serious crime. However, I really don't understand why the 10,000 dragons pearl was stolen. After thinking about it, the only possibility is that the powerhouses of the Dragon God realm are secretly behind this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have noticed anything from the beginning to the end." Chapter 1872. The Ancestral Realm. Wang Feng slowly opened his eyes. A fragment floated in front of him. The creation jade disc had absorbed all the great Tao energy in the 10,000 dragons pearl. But Wang Feng still needed to comprehend some of the key points. 10,000 dragons pearl, Wang Feng said slowly. Although there were only a few wisps of great Tao energy, it could activate some of the creation jade disc abilities. It had yet to give birth to a complete great Tao. But the creation jade disc was one of the 3 chaos treasures of the primitive universe. A chaos treasure is indeed a chaos treasure. A thoughtful smile appeared on Wang Feng's face. Its current abilities were monotonous. With those wisps of great Tao energy, it was like a blackout city being injected with electricity for the first time. Next, Wang Feng could use the good fortune jade disc to sense the endless power of the great Tao. Although the primitive universe had been destroyed, even the chaos treasures had been destroyed, but the 3,000 great Taos contained in them would not disappear. They would just dissipate. They would disappear among the countless universes. The karma of the universe is really wonderful. Wang Feng closed his eyes and pondered for a few seconds. When he obtained the good fortune jade disc, he thought that it would take a long time to restore it. But he did not expect to encounter the Dragon God realm. And he got the 10,000 dragons pearl. And there were a few wisps of great Tao energy in the 10,000 dragons pearl. That was why the creation jade disc could be activated. Although the origin of the creation jade disc was related to the god of the divine system universe. Thinking of this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, Yin Mingyao's voice suddenly came. "Master, the situation is not good. The 10,000 dragons pearl has been stolen. The 10,000 dragons universe seems to have sent experts." The 10,000 dragons universe sent experts? Wang Feng paused and waved his hand. "It's expected. If they don't send experts, I won't know the location of the 10,000 dragons universe." Yin Mingyao was stunned. "Since they are here, let's capture them and ask for the location of the 10,000 dragons universe. Let's see what's going on in this universe." Wang Feng said lightly. "You mean you want to take action?" Yin Mingyao asked carefully. "Me?" Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. Now, the races in the ancestral realm are growing stronger and stronger. Those children of destiny are starting to look like towering trees. The dragon sent by the 10,000 dragons cosmos is at most a heavenly god. Unless this member of the dragon race has a true universe-level willpower and passed the origin wheel calamity. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to do anything. Besides, dragons, the ones your master created, are dragons with the purest bloodlines in the primitive universe. Why do you need me, your master, to do it? Just as Wang Feng finished speaking, his mind suddenly stirred. Li Feiyu has spent 800,000 points to exchange for a set of god-slaying martial arts. A crisp voice rang in the ears of Yin Mengyao and Wang Feng. Look, aren't they quite good at it? Wang Feng laughed. Wang Feng naturally knew about the items in the event prize pool dungeon. How extravagant, Yin Mengyao ridiculed. The god-slaying martial art is an exclusive system that Master created by imitating the eternal god-slaying martial art. That thing is something that only demon gods of the dark demon world are barely capable of using. How would they be able to use it? They can't even control the power of the origin. I'm really impressed. That's right. This god-slaying martial art was created by Wang Feng when he placed it in the event prize pool. Wang Feng had all the data of the god-slaying martial art of the dark demon world and the void engine of the super godly universe. If he wanted to create it, he just needed materials. And materials were not lacking in the dark demon world. Even in the super godly universe, Wang Feng did not lack materials. However, a set of weapons of this level could not be used by ordinary people at all. Only powerhouses at the level of godly kings or demon gods could unleash their greatest power after a long period of practice. The reason was very simple. A weapon of this level, even if it was activated, required the power of the origin, not to mention the continuous flow of energy. If it was used well, even the heavenly gods of the divine system universe, even if they were not particularly strong, could fight with them. Who said there's no origin? Wang Feng laughed. Doesn't Jing Tian have the origin? If it's activated with Jing Tian's origin and gathered all the power of the others, it's not a problem to activate the god-slaying martial art temporarily. It's possible to gather everyone's power and defeat the five-color divine dragon. They are all children of destiny. Their intelligence is not low. I didn't put those one-time destructive treasures in the prize pool because I want to see what they will do when they encounter such an enemy far beyond their imagination. They're now in a state of rapid growth. After all, they still need some life and death tempering. Otherwise, although they can become the geniuses of a world in the end, it will be difficult for them to go on for a long time, Yin Mengyao nodded. So, for now, we just need to watch. If it really doesn't work, let the dragons in the ancestral realm take care of it. Dragon God Realm, Dragon Palace. Stop talking. The five-color divine dragon in the sky exuded an aura that seemed to be able to destroy the entire Dragon God Realm. Don't find excuses for your incompetence. Even if there is an expert who surpasses the Dragon God Realm, it is your incompetence. Why did your Dragon God Realm provoke an expert? Don't you know? How long has it been since the 10,000 Dragon Pearl was given to you? If you can develop steadily for a few hundred years, your strength will not be too far away from my level. At that time, even if there is an expert who surpasses the Dragon God Realm, you won't be like this. You don't even know how the 10,000 Dragon Pearl was stolen. Isn't it because you rashly started a war with the Douluo Divine Realm? The roars of the five-colored divine dragons were like bolts of lightning that rang out in the Golden Dragon King's ears. The Golden Dragon King cursed in his heart. He knew that the 10,000 dragons cosmos would know everything about the Dragon God Realm. When they gave the 10,000 Dragon Pearl, they must have been monitoring the Dragon God Realm. Otherwise, how would they know that the Dragon God Realm had sent a few giant dragons to the Douluo Divine Realm to start a war? The war hasn't even started yet. It wasn't easy for me to escape from the Dark Demon Realm. I found the Dragon God Realm, and I even became the king of the Dragon God Realm after much difficulty. I even obtained the Myriad Dragon Pearl. That Douluo God Realm is nothing to me. They imprisoned me for so many years. If I can't avenge my past humiliation, then what's the point of being king? The Golden Dragon King thought. Of course, he couldn't say what was in his heart. He could only brace himself and say, Venerable Dragon God, I know about the Douluo Divine Realm. I have been there for countless years. I know the strength of that divine realm. In fact, it is extremely weak. Also, when I was imprisoned in the Dark Demon Realm, a war broke out between the two realms and several divine kings disappeared. Currently, There is only one divine king, Tang San. Chapter 1873. It's impossible for him to be a match for our dragon god realm. Therefore, it's not because I provoked the divine realm that an expert who surpasses the dragon god realm appeared. It's definitely an accident. The Golden Dragon King could clearly tell that the venerable dragon god was blaming him for provoking the divine realm, which was why he had attracted an enemy that the dragon god realm could not deal with. What an idiot. However, the five-color divine dragon immediately let out a furious roar. When the profound dragon emperor left, he clearly said that he would let you control the 10,000 dragon pearl and quietly develop the dragon god realm for several hundred years. When the time comes, listen to his orders, and you will definitely be of great use. Do you really think that the mystic dragon emperor's words are just for show? There's a native heavenly god in the Douluo divine realm, and he's currently engaged in a divine battle with another extremely powerful universe. No matter how weak the backing of the Dalu divine realm is, it's still beyond your imagination. Our 10,000 dragons cosmos has already expressed our stance, and we won't interfere with each other. Now that you've provoked the Dalu divine world, that native heavenly god of the divine system cosmos will definitely turn his attention to the dragon god realm. If he notices, then our myriad dragons cosmos will be considered to have intervened in this battle. Even if that native heavenly god is nothing to the 10,000 dragons universe, he's still a heavenly god. However, the mystic dragon emperor will never tolerate being in the same boat as the god system's universe. Once he changes his stance, do you know how many battles will be involved? Forget it. Speaking so much to a disobedient idiot like you is really useless. The five-color divine dragon seemed to be mentally exhausted. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. The Golden Dragon King was a little confused. How could he possibly know about the godly system's universe, the indigenous heavenly gods, and the godly wars? He didn't know any of these things. Who would have known that the mystic dragon monarch's orders were so complicated? He asked with trepidation. Then, what should we do next? The five-color divine dragon's body froze, and its golden eyes emitted a strong, killing intent. What's next is naturally to nip the matter in the bud. After that, we'll immediately abandon the dragon god realm and leave. As she spoke, the five-color divine dragon's eyes swept across the entire dragon god realm as if she was sensing something. At the same time, in another place, in a valley, Ying Zheng and Yi Fan stood at the entrance of a mountain, waiting quietly. A moment later, a group of Gulfstream troops came from afar. Their speed was extremely fast, like the torrential flow of a great river, rapidly moving in their direction. He's here. Brother Chow is here. In addition to Brother Gili and that last Xiaoyu. Now, all we need is a waiter. Yi Fan shouted in a clear voice. As soon as he finished speaking, in the distance, a figure was moving rapidly through the clouds, leaving behind a rainbow-colored tassel. In the blink of an eye, he landed in front of them. Young master is here. Is everyone here? The figure laughed heartily. He looked at Yi Fan and Ying Zheng with excitement. He pointed at Yi Fan and said, "You're Fan Yi, right? This should be the big brother who borrowed another 10,000 years from the heavens? As expected, your aura is extraordinary. TSK. Fan Yi, you're much weaker. You feel about the same as me. Damn, little buddy, you're really arrogant." Yi Fan scolded with a smile. Don't think that you could be arrogant just because the ancestor god gave you the origin source. Jing Tian chuckled. This was the first time they met in the group. Although the reason was to deal with a strong enemy, and there wasn't the atmosphere of a meetup, they had always been communicating in the group. In the end, they were still a little excited. All right, when will Brother Fei Yu arrive? Now, we just lack his 1 million plus points. Jing Tian heaved a long sigh of relief. They had already confirmed the plan in the group. They had even exchanged for the item. He might not be able to come. Ying Zheng's gaze was solemn. Because he is at the border of Dragon City, there is a long distance between him and us. In addition, the pressure over there is too terrifying. Jing Tian was slightly stunned. The item he exchanged for has been temporarily given to Fan Yi in the group. After he uses it, he will return it to him. Ingzheng slowly said, So, next we need to work together and head to Dragon City to bring Fei Yu back. Also, we need to defeat that 5-color divine dragon. Jing Tian nodded slightly. Li Feiyu was trapped in the surroundings of Dragon City, but his points were still there. He directly exchanged for the item from the event's prize pool and then gave it to Fan Yi through the group chat. Then, Fan Yi took it out from the group chat. Where's the item? Jing Tian asked. This god-slaying weapon is worth 800,000 points. When I came here, I kept thinking about what it is, Yi Fan chuckled. It's a very powerful item. Let's go. Since we are here, let's go and take a look. After saying that, Yi Fan brought Jing Tian and walked into the valley. In the depths of the valley, Ingzheng had already prepared an empty space. Jing Tian passed through the medicinal forest and the sea of flowers. After a short while, he arrived at the empty space. What entered his eyes was a pitch-black round ball that emitted a black metallic luster. It looked ordinary. Just this? Jing Tian was stunned. This is the god-slaying weapon? 800,000 points? It shouldn't be. It's just a palm-sized round ball. I remember that the introduction of the god-slaying weapon was extremely impressive. God-slaying weapon. The strongest god-slaying weapon below the universe level. All the gods and Buddhas in the universe can be killed. Weak ones can't control it if they don't have an origin source. Short and terrifying. They didn't know what the universe level was. But it should be an extremely distant realm. Such a powerful weapon. In the end, it was just a bead. What do you know? Yi Fan sneered. To think you're a pawnshop assistant. You have no foresight at all. This thing needs to be activated. It originally belonged to Brother Fei Yu. However, Li Fei Yu's strength isn't enough. He doesn't have an origin source and doesn't have enough energy. Hence, he can't activate it. This thing is extremely high level. According to our guess, it might be able to change its form according to its origin source. Then Jing Tian pondered for a while. Even though I have an origin source, I'm not familiar with controlling it. I also don't have enough energy. Who says it's not enough? A few voices resounded. The ones who walked over were the other people from the chat group. Little fellow, you are underestimating us. Xiao Sun giggled. Not just us, there are 2 emperors here. Fan Yi, Brother Gue Li, and us are all here. They even have an army. How can it not be enough? That's right. In truth, the energy should be enough. Gue Li smiled and said, It just depends on your origin source. Little fellow, we will be together when the time comes. Don't worry, you can give it a try first. Chow Chow said slowly, even though this was the first time they had met. However, the current situation was urgent. They didn't even have time to get to know each other. They could only look at the big picture. It wouldn't be too late to talk about it after the crisis was resolved. Jing Tian nodded. He walked towards the bead in the middle of the empty space. Chapter 1874. As he walked, Jing Tian was still a little nervous. However, he was more excited and excited. Halfway through, Jing Tian saw many translucent lines on the ground. They extended from all directions towards the high platform, all the way to the bottom of the bead. It seemed to be some kind of formation. It should be some kind of formation that gathers energy? Jing Tian thought. He walked in front of the bead. It was the size of a palm. It was difficult to see the material with the naked eye, but the surface was suffused with an ink-black luster. He stretched out his hand, closed his eyes, and communicated with the origin in his body. This origin was given by the ancestor god, and it was a kind of Sword Dao origin. However, Jing Tian had been comprehending the Sword Dao origin these days, but his progress was relatively slow. After all, the power of the origin was too powerful, and the mysteries contained in it were enough for him to study for many years. However, the origin was not only the mystery, but also the embodiment of power. A powerful origin could ignore the rules of the world and cause devastating destruction. Over the past few days, Jing Tian believed that he had slightly comprehended the profundity of the Sword Dao origin. This Sword Dao was called Soul Slayer. It also involved some mysteries of space. It was extremely mysterious. The so-called soul was the soul, spirit, and will. The Soul Slayer's sword, Dao, could jump out of space, pass through the physical body, and directly destroy the souls of all living beings in the heavens, causing death. Moreover, it could make the latter have no possibility of reincarnation. It was extremely domineering and evil. In the beginning, Jing Tian actually rejected it. This was because the Soul Slayer origin was too powerful, and Jing Tian was afraid that he could not control it. If he suffered a backlash, it would be terrible. Later, he gradually realized that this was the origin given by the ancestor god. Relatively speaking, it was very stable, and there was not much of a hindrance when comprehending it. His strength, on the other hand, was increasing at a rapid pace. Now, he was about to use this origin to activate the mysterious god slaying martial art. He was facing an unprecedented enemy. Jing Tian's spirit was highly concentrated. The origin deep in his soul moved along with him. Flows of powerful origin energy began to gather in Jing Tian's palm. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, and his palm gently touched the bead in front of him, almost at the moment when the origin power came into contact with the bead. Jing Tian felt the origin power in his body rapidly depleting. The next moment, the bead began to change. Crack, crack, crack. The energy converged like a stream of water surrounding the bead. The light began to extend. It seemed to be changing. Jing Tian's eyes widened as the bead began to undergo a drastic change. Surrounded by the origin energy, it began to change shape and elongate at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a gigantic sword that was over 100 meters tall, like a mountain peak. A terrifying suction force came from the giant's sword and instantly sucked Jing Tian in. The god-slaying martial art 1.0 has been activated, receiving weak origin energy. Finalizing. According to the known origin, the god-slaying martial art will be changed to Soul Slayer, God-slaying. Temporarily lacking energy. Currently unable to activate other functions. Sensing failed. Please provide sufficient energy as soon as possible. Jing Tian heard a voice in a daze. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dreamlike space. In front of him was the scenery of the outside world surrounding him. He could even see Fan Yi and the others below. Success? Jing Tian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He seemed to have entered the interior of the god-slaying martial arts. Hearing the crisp mechanical voice, Jing Tian seemed to have understood something. The product of the ancestor god is indeed powerful. I don't understand. Let them see. Jing Tian immediately reported the current situation in the chat group. At the next moment, the energy patterns on the ground immediately lit up. Absorbing energy, 1%, 5%. Jing Tian heard this voice again. He looked around and roughly understood that this voice should be the god-slaying martial arts. Weapon spirit? Thinking of this, Jing Tian could completely understand. I want to ask, Jing Tian suddenly asked, is this form formed by my origin energy? Yes. Such a huge internal space can only accommodate me alone? No, it can accommodate a lot of people. But the current form can only be controlled by one person. Any other life form that enters the internal space can only provide energy, but cannot control it. Hearing this, Jing Tian understood. In the chat group, Jing Tian said, everyone, quickly come in. This can accommodate all of us. Come in together. Let's go and kill that dragon. Everyone. Jing Tian explained the situation again. Everyone understood and immediately flew into the huge sword. Damn, this is the internal space of the god-slaying martial art. Yifan looked around. It feels like the inside of Gundam. Interesting. Look at the interface in front. It's a bit high-end. This god-slaying martial art changes according to the origin energy. In other words, it's ever-changing? In theory, that's right. Jing Tian was a bit excited. It feels very strong. I'm only using it temporarily. I'm not the owner of this god-slaying martial art. If it's Brother Feiyu, this god-slaying martial art should exist in his body. Moreover, This god-slaying martial arts weapon spirit can also be communicated with. The internal space itself is extremely vast. It's equivalent to a small world. The most important feeling should be this weapon spirit. It's extremely intelligent. As Jing Tian said, his tone was somewhat envious. How intelligent is it? Xiao Sunair asked curiously. So intelligent that it can analyze the strength of everyone in the outside world, Jing Tian said, and analyze this world. After he finished speaking, Jing Tian directly waved his hand and pulled open a huge screen in front of them. The screen was filled with densely packed stories about the dragon god realm and the analysis of the giant dragons of this realm. The changes in the surrounding energy, the aura of living beings, and all kinds of rare plants could be clearly seen at a glance. It could even sense the surrounding terrain, and so on. Even the number of dragons in a radius of several 100,000 miles, the size of the cities, and the specific information were clearly marked. A weapon of this level. Jing Tian hesitated. A weapon of this level. Cao Cao's gaze was deep as he continued. If it has enough energy, it should be able to easily destroy the entire dragon god realm. And the power we have now. When everyone heard this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Although I haven't tested its power, Jing Tian couldn't help but shake his head. It's too scary. It's as if the moment it's activated, half of the dragon god realm will be scanned and revealed. I'm afraid that the weapon spirit will say, "Do you want to execute a destructive attack?" Chapter 1875. Just as Jing Tian finished speaking, a voice sounded in his mind. Do you want to launch a destructive attack on this world? A powerful life force has been detected in this world. The destruction rate can only reach 60%. Jing Tian. What's wrong? Ghostly saw that Jing Tian was suddenly stunned. I said, Jing Tian stammered. I really said that everyone, however, the god-slaying weapon seems to have sensed the aura of that five-colored dragon. Jing Tian said, the destruction rate is only about 60%. It seems that the five-colored dragon is still strong enough. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to Dragon City. Xiao Sunair said excitedly. This god-slaying weapon is so strong. No matter how bad it is, it can save Feiyu. If we can kill that five-colored dragon and offer it to the ancestor god, it shouldn't be a problem for each of us to get a few 100,000 points, right? Everyone nodded. Then let's set off. Jing Tian took a deep breath. With a thought, in an instant, the earth shook as if the entire world was trembling. However, this pitch-black giant sword still turned into a stream of light and disappeared from where it was. Target locked, Dragon City. Plane folding complete. Space jumping, countdown 1, 2, 3. Destination reached. Almost as soon as his voice fell, Yi Zichen's expression changed. It had just started. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding scenery seemed to travel through time and space, turning into countless illusions. Then, what appeared in front of them was a magnificent giant city. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. We're here. Yifan took a deep breath. Good lord, this thing is too strong. This is the Dragon God realm. The laws of this world are completely different from the world we live in. It's ridiculous to be able to travel through space so easily. Does this mean that this god-slaying weapon has completely broken away from the laws of the Dragon God realm? Wait, look! In the sky, when Yifan finished speaking, everyone had already noticed. This was Dragon City, and in the sky was that five-color dragon. Huge could no longer be used to describe this level of life form. Just one of its scales seemed to contain an entire world filled with a mysterious luster. It was not the first time they had seen this kind of universe-level life form. However, this was probably the first time he had seen a cosmic life form of a dragon race. In fact, most people didn't even know the concept of a universe level. There was no way to tell. It was just that they were unable to determine, but the god-slaying martial artist could. It was the ultimate weapon that Wang Feng had created based on the Dark Demon Realm's Godslayer. It had too many functions by itself. If even universe-level life forms couldn't tell the difference, then it would be very difficult for demon god-level powerhouses to fight against celestial gods. It's you, the one who stole the myriad dragon pearl? Meanwhile, a shocking dragon roar resounded through the clouds. They could not distinguish the sound of the dragon's roar. However, his voice seemed to have penetrated their weapons and directly entered their souls. Everyone was shocked. This giant dragon was too strong. It was as if they had been completely discovered. You actually dare to appear in front of me. The five-color divine dragon let out a disdainful and cold dragon roar. At this moment, the Golden Dragon King was also stunned. He was not as powerful as the five-color divine dragon, so he could not tell what the black sword was. However, since the five-color divine dragon had spoken, it could not be wrong. Thinking of this, the Golden Dragon King immediately said, "Venerable Dragon God, since these are the thieves, why do you need to do it yourself? Why don't you let the Dragon God realm do it? Right now, in my Dragon Palace, they will not be able to return." The five-color divine dragon was silent. A trace of contempt flashed in his eyes, but he said lightly, "Then I'll leave it to you. Don't let me down." Hearing this, the Golden Dragon King was delighted. His heart was filled with anger. He let out a long roar and transformed into a giant golden dragon that was tens of thousands of meters long. "Kill them!" the Golden Dragon King roared. In an instant, all the dragon warriors in the Dragon Palace transformed into their original forms. Giant dragons that exuded a powerful aura immediately surrounded the place. Not even a trace of breeze could blow in. Jing Tian, who was inside the god-slaying martial artist, was a little flustered. This was too King fast. Even if they were prepared, it shouldn't be like this. "Young man, give the order." Ingzheng immediately shouted, "Don't be in a daze. It's time to test the true power of this weapon that was given by the ancestral god and is worth hundreds of thousands of points." Jing Tian suddenly came to his senses. His mind moved. More than 37,600 giant dragons have been detected. Locked on, the strongest dragon emperor has not exceeded the highest annihilation level of the god-killing weapon. The fundamental origin energy has changed. Currently, two types of attacks can be carried out. First, slash the souls and destroy the spirits. Consume 90% of the god-killing weapon's energy, destroy all the giant dragons' lives in one fell swoop, and slash the souls. Second, slash the souls and fix the spirits. Consume 30% of the god-killing weapon's energy, slash the 3 spirits of all the giant dragons, fix the 3 spirits, and paralyze them. At least for a few years, they will not be able to cultivate, and their intelligence will decrease. It will take 10 years for them to recover. The crisp and clear notification made Jing Tian suck in a cold breath. However, at this time, Jing Tian did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he immediately shared the information with everyone. "Choose the second option," Yi Fan immediately said. "These giant dragons are just small fries to us now. After killing them, their energy will be used up. But next, when facing the 5-color divine dragon, we can only run. Moreover, with only 1 layer of energy left, we probably can't run too far." "That's right." Xiao Suner nodded. "Choose the second option. Our enemy is that 5-color divine dragon," Ghostly echoed. Chao Chao and Ingzheng also nodded slightly. After hearing this, Jing Tian directly chose the second option. In fact, he had already chosen the second option in his heart, but to be safe, he still asked for the opinions of the others. After all, it was not an exaggeration to say that his every move was related to their life and death. Confirming the attack program. Beginning implementation. Target locked. Analyzing the life characteristics of all the giant dragons. Analysis complete. Activating the origin of Soul Slayer. Beginning the attack of Soul Slayer. Following the god-killing weapon's words, a quiet mechanical voice sounded. The 100-meter-long giant sword began to emit a dazzling divine light. In an instant, the world froze, and the origin of the sword spread to the entire giant sword, turning into a faint rainbow light. Under this rainbow light, the giant sword disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the air, there were only cracks that appeared like lightning. Countless giant dragons seemed to have been hit by the pause button and were stunned in the sky like statues. Even the Golden Dragon King was the same. There were no wounds on his body, but he could no longer move. Rumble. In the next moment, all the giant dragons fell into Dragon City like raindrops, smashing this magnificent city into pieces. When everyone saw this scene, they immediately gasped and stared blankly. Chapter 1876. Ancestral Realm. Master, this god-slaying weapon is so powerful. Yin Mingyao stared blankly at the scene on the screen. Yin Mingyao could see the movements of Jing Tian and the others. After all, as an event dungeon opened by Wang Feng, he naturally needed to observe their movements at all times. Otherwise, Wang Feng couldn't bear to lose one of them accidentally. Jing Tian and the other children of destiny represented the luck of a world and gathered the faith of a world. No matter who was missing, he would lose a lot of faith power. Now that the fifth reincarnation was about to be established, the faith power couldn't be lost. It's not that big. Wang Feng glanced at it casually. This should be the weakest. The power of the god-slaying weapon fluctuates according to the user's origin power. Jing Tian's origin power may not be controlled by half. At this time, half of the power of the god-slaying weapon hasn't been released. Wang Feng shook his head. He knew best what he created. Since it was something that was put in the prize pool, it was worth hundreds of thousands of points. Naturally, it wouldn't be simple. It couldn't be said that this thing was stronger than all kinds of origins. However, if it was in the hands of a powerhouse, it would naturally be stronger. But I don't feel that I'm that strong, Yin Mingyao said blankly. Obviously, I'm also a god slayer. I'm still an eternal god slayer. Why aren't you strong? Wang Feng asked. It's just a feeling, Yin Mingyao said. I feel like I'm very weak. When Master fought with Mo Tines for the first time, I didn't help at all. I couldn't resist at all when encountering that kind of universe-level life form. But this god-slaying weapon can let a demon god-level powerhouse fight with a heavenly god of the god system universe. Master back then, you should be several times stronger than these children of destiny now, right? Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. How can this be compared? Wang Feng glared at her. Although you're an eternal god slayer, you were created by Yin Lord. In terms of algebra, you're the sixth generation of the god slayer. But this god-slaying weapon was indeed deduced by me based on your foundation and integrated with the void engine of the super-godly universe. It's the seventh generation. Even the super-godly universe, it's one of a kind. Moreover, the heavenly gods of the divine system universe are not as strong as you think. Based on the few heavenly gods I've fought so far, most of them only have projections. Although they have the enhancement of their divine territories and their spawns, they're still very weak. But unless it's within the rules of their god system's universe, it's impossible for them to rival those who truly possess the will of the universe outside. After all, the will of the universe is not something that can be casually possessed. Among the Empyrean gods in the divine system universe, there are only a few who possess the true will of the universe. Those are the ones that are considered to be more powerful. The god-slaying martial art naturally cannot jump ranks and exchange blows with those relatively powerful ones. There's more. You're not weak. Wang Feng's expression turned serious when he said this. You are the heavenly Tao of the ancestral realm, and your status is comparable to the Yama Lords. When the 9 paths of the ancestral realm were established, your strength easily surpassed Yin, Xingjue, and Shiyu. Becoming a universe-level life form is a sure thing, and the god-slaying weapon is just a set of weapons. You are not a weapon, Wang Feng said seriously. He saw Yin Mingyao looking at him with a smile. Why are you looking at me? Wang Feng asked. Master, it's been a long time since I've heard you praise someone like this. Yin Mingyao giggled. Say more, I like to hear it. Is it because you've been in contact with fewer women recently that your reaction has become slower? Wang Feng suddenly realized. F***CK. with Yin Mingyao as the eternal god-slaying database and the information obtained by following him after becoming the heavenly Tao. How could she not know what he was talking about? Wang Feng looked at the beauty in front of him. She was somewhat similar to Yin Qingjue, but she was not one of the soul demons in the dark demon realm. You're asking for a beating. Wang Feng scolded with a smile and slapped the latter's perky buttocks. Look carefully, don't seduce your master here. With a smack, waves of flesh rippled. That undulating arc seemed to gather all the charm in the world. Aya! Yin Mingyao moaned coquettishly and looked at Wang Feng with a smile. Isn't this servant trying to add some fun to master's boring and withered cultivation? This servant has dual cultivated with master's soul before. But you haven't dual cultivated your body before. What a pity. Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. This was Yin Mingyao's appearance when she first recognized him as her master and transformed into her human form. But at that time, it was because of Yin Zhu's settings and Yin Mingyao's database, which had a lot of records of Wang Feng's deeds at that time. So, it was not her nature. Now it seemed, Master, look, your confidants have been abducted by the Crimson Divine Fox Emperor. Yin Mingyao pursed her red lips slightly and poured out her beautiful heart. The only ones who can accompany you now are Yin Zhu, and Shi Yu. Yin Zhu is a soul demon. Although he is beautiful, he is too tall and does not meet Master's aesthetic standards. Shi Yu is the heavenly Tao of the Douluo divine world. She is usually aloof and has a temperament like a fairy. Although she is also as beautiful as a goddess, she is not coquettish enough. She is also very reserved. Yin Mingyao pinched her voice and said softly and coquettishly, For you, Master, it's too bland and tasteless. There's a Qianren Xue in the transcendent cosmos, but you are not free. You often go to the transcendent cosmos. Wang Feng, as for the women from other worlds, they're really not worthy of you. Yin Mingyao's tone became more and more charming. Earlier, those two fellows, Ying Zheng and Chao Chao, wanted to offer some beauties as sacrifices. Oh, right. Wang Feng suddenly thought of this. In their world, why didn't they sacrifice some beauties? Of course it was me who stopped them. Yin Mingyao giggled. Why would they sacrifice those women from the mortal world? So that Master can give them divine power for no reason? How can there be such a good thing in the world? I secretly reminded them that sacrificing them is useless to the ancestor god. Why is it useless? Wang Feng knocked Yin Mingyao's head. There are children of destiny and daughters of destiny. How can it be useless? No, why does everyone in the group seem to be men? The only woman is Xiao Sun. She is a married woman. Wang Feng seemed to have found a blind spot. If there were children of destiny, there would naturally be daughters of destiny. There were several in each world. Why didn't any of them join the group? Oh, Master, you finally found out. Yin Mingyao seemed to be frightened and hurriedly took 2 steps back. Yin Zhu said that in order to prevent Master from becoming a stud horse, there are enough women around you. If there are more, it will only take away your power for no reason and drag you down for no reason. Therefore, they are all chosen children of destiny. Chapter 1877. Wang Feng. Holy shit. This Yin Qingjue. This is the Yama Master's decision. It has nothing to do with me. Yin Mingyao took 2 more steps back. It's fine. Wang Feng looked at her with a half smile. Yin Qingjue is right. I don't have time to care about women right now. But you're right. We've already dual cultivated our souls. It's a pity that we didn't dual cultivate our bodies. Yin Mingyao's eyes lit up when she heard this. She immediately leaned over and winked coquettishly. But then, Wang Feng's body moved slightly, and 2 identical bodies suddenly appeared beside him. Each of them gave off a unique aura. How can one dual cultivate their bodies be enough? Wang Feng said with a smile. Why, we have to do it together, right? Yin Mingyao's face turned pale, and she subconsciously took a few steps back. She covered her mouth with one hand and covered her, but with the other. She stammered, Master, let's watch the situation over there. The 5-color divine dragon is moving. It's fine. We'll dual cultivate our bodies while watching. No, don't Dragon God Realm, Dragon Palace. The god-slaying martial art used soul-slaying and soul-fixing. Tens of thousands of dragons fell from the sky like a rain of dragons. The entire dragon city was riddled with holes. Everyone inside the god-slaying martial art was excited and excited. Fuck, this is too damn strong, Yi fans said excitedly. If it weren't for that 5-color divine dragon, wouldn't we be able to sweep through the entire dragon god record with this god-slaying martial art? This is too abnormal. It is indeed too abnormal. Jing Tian's voice was trembling. What the introduction said was true. Hundreds of thousands of points, it's true. I feel like this weapon is much stronger than we imagined. Ghostly sighed. The god-slaying martial art relies on the power of origin to activate. In other words, the power of the god-slaying martial art is related to the power of the origin. Even with the little boy's current power of origin, he can perform so well. Big brothers, it's not over yet. Xiao Sun, Er's face was red, but she hurriedly reminded them. Next is the 5-color divine dragon. Cao Cao pondered. A life form of this level. I wonder how strong he is. I'm afraid it will be very difficult. Yingzheng thought for a few seconds. According to the analysis of our think tank, the strength of this 5-color divine dragon should far surpass our imagination. Perhaps it only needs a few thoughts to kill us. However, if we are inside the god-slaying martial art, that might not necessarily be the case. What Yingzheng said was not wrong. At this moment, the 5-color divine dragon in the sky stared at the huge sword formed by the god-slaying weapon. The 5-color divine dragon did not show any expression as it watched the tens of thousands of dragons fall in a seemingly frozen state. There was not even the slightest trace of anger in his eyes. There was only coldness and indifference. In the next moment, the 5-color divine dragon's eyes glowed with boundless golden light. So, it's just an origin grade saint artifact. If you don't attack, you won't be able to tell. Oomph. The 5-color divine dragon snorted coldly. However, if that's all, then all of you can perish. The instant his words left his mouth, a voice rang out. As soon as the words left his mouth, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed drastically. Everything seemed to be disappearing and reassembling. In just an instant, everyone inside the god-slaying martial art, even though they were isolated from the outside world, felt a strong sense of fear. Sacred Dragon Will, Universe Annihilation. The boundless and terrifying will, with the 5-color divine dragon as the center, seemed to want to shatter the entire dragon god realm. In front of such a great power, it seemed that the 5-color divine dragon was the only thing in the entire world emitting billions of divine light. The true will of the universe was irresistible. But at this moment, almost immediately, the power of the god-slaying martial art was revealed. Accompanied by the boundless and majestic will, the entire world seemed to be crushed and everything disappeared into nothingness. All life in the world would cease to exist. Inside the god-slaying martial art, a strong will fluctuation and pressure has been detected, temporarily activating the evasion program. Unable to evade. User, please be prepared. Next, all of the origin energy will be consumed to launch the strongest attack of this form. There is a 70% chance that all of you will be unharmed. Do you want to activate it? Jing Tian suddenly woke up and roared. Activate it immediately. They could not use words to describe their feelings when facing such a terrifying power. But there were a few times when they had seen this power. It was just that at that time, the one facing this power was not themselves. It was the Ancestor God. The Ancestor God was so relaxed. In the blink of an eye, everything could be settled. It was as if this power was as simple as raising a hand. Although they had long known that this unimaginable power was definitely very strong. But only when they truly faced it could they feel the boundless and majestic power of this power and that kind of despair and fear. Everyone who was still excited a moment ago immediately fell silent. In fact, the hard power among them. They were all about the same. The system of each world was different, but their strength was about the same. At this moment, They could clearly feel that if they were outside, they might turn into nothingness in the next moment in front of this power. Following Jing Tian's order, almost in the next moment, the god-slaying martial art suddenly emitted an intense light. Like the origin of the storm, the giant sword turned into a ray of cosmic light, with an aura that could cut through everything, as if it was going to cut through that unparalleled light. However, every time it moved forward an inch, the god-slaying martial art would shatter an inch. At the moment when it shattered to the point where only half of the sword was left, it rushed into the clouds and tore a small hole in the sea of light that could destroy the world, and saw the true body of the five-color divine dragon. The five-color divine dragon was slightly stunned, as if it did not expect this weapon to be so powerful. Vaguely, it could even feel that the half of the weapon was emitting a fatal but subtle aura. Zong. The five-color divine dragon's huge body was slashed by the half of the god-slaying martial art. It actually felt a slight pain. There seemed to be an extreme power in its divine soul that was corroding it at an extremely terrifying speed. What kind of power is this? The five-color divine dragon was extremely shocked. The five-color divine dragon was slightly stunned, as if it did not expect this weapon to be so powerful. Vaguely, it could even feel that the half of the weapon was emitting a fatal but subtle aura. Zong. The five-color divine dragon's huge body was slashed by the half of the god-slaying martial art. It actually felt a slight pain. There seemed to be an extreme power in its divine soul that was corroding it at an extremely terrifying speed. What kind of power is this? The five-color divine dragon was extremely shocked. FPZW. Chapter 1878. At this moment, inside the god-slaying weapon, everyone was silent. Who would have thought that the strongest attack of the god-slaying weapon would only slightly injure the five-color divine dragon? What was the difference between this and scraping? At this moment, they finally understood how powerful this terrifying life form was. However, what should they do next? Everyone was silent. But the god-slaying weapon said. Jing Tian lowered his voice. In that instant, he felt as if all the origin energy in his body had been sucked out. We have a 70% chance of being unharmed. That is to say, surviving. Jing Tian looked outside at the huge five-color divine dragon and muttered, "How can we survive? 70% chance? I'm afraid it's not 0% chance." How is it possible for them to have such a high chance of survival when the attacks were like scraping sand? The strongest attack. What level of power is that? Yi Fan sighed. When we broke through just now, the god-slaying weapon was almost in a completely shattered state, and only then did it barely injure the five-color divine dragon. Just now, they all felt the aura of death. That was the feeling of being within reach. It was hard to imagine that level of power. If not for the protection of the god-slaying weapon, they might have disappeared in an instant. What do we do now? Xiao Sun opened her mouth and asked a question that everyone was unwilling to face. Wait for death. The huge sword formed outside, the god-slaying weapon shattered, and they were now inside the original ball of the god-slaying weapon. It directly returned to its original form. I don't believe it. Ing Zheng shouted. This beast is so powerful. Brother, you have to believe it. Cao Cao patted Ing Zheng's shoulder. If this beast wants to destroy this world, it should be a matter of an instant. Ing Zheng, I think, Ghostly suddenly said, the god-slaying weapon shouldn't be wrong. This is the probability calculated by the god-slaying weapon. Perhaps there is something that we haven't figured out. Just as Ghost Li's voice faded, Xiao Sun suddenly exclaimed, Look, there's something wrong with that beast. Everyone looked over and was slightly stunned. They saw that the five-color divine dragon seemed to have retracted that unimaginably terrifying willpower, and there was a hint of anxiety in its eyes. The scraping action, which could only be considered a small wound, seemed to have made him panic. Look, the small wound caused by the god-slaying martial skill earlier doesn't seem to have disappeared. Yi Fan suddenly said, This is very fishy. For a life form of this level, Even if the damage caused by the god-slaying weapon was condensed from the origin energy, such a small wound should have healed in the blink of an eye. It's like using a sharp knife. If you leave a scar on my body will automatically recover in a few breaths at most. But now, everyone seemed to have discovered a blind spot. The next moment, the five-color divine dragon suddenly roared twice at the sky, and then its body immediately began to rise. He seemed to be avoiding something. It seems to be leaving? Jing Tian's eyes suddenly widened. Everyone was slightly dumbfounded. A circle of light that shone like the sun suddenly appeared in the sky. The five-color divine dragon roared as it flew into the circle of light. The moment the huge figure disappeared, the light in this world became brighter. "We survived," Xiao Sun air muttered. Why did that five-colored enormous dragon suddenly leave? Shouldn't it be attacking us? Right now, the enormous sword formed by the god-slaying martial skill has shattered and disappeared. Everyone was puzzled. It must be because of that wound. Yi Fan said. That wound looked like a scraping action, but in reality, it might contain a power that we don't know about. It might be a power that even that bastard feared. We know too little about the god-slaying martial skill. Perhaps this is the 70% probability that the god-slaying martial skill mentioned. Little fellow, why don't you ask the god-slaying martial skill what the reason is? Jing Tian asked. The god-slaying martial skill only gave 4 words. God-slaying power. God-slaying power. Everyone was puzzled, as if this was the first time they understood this power. However, now that the bastard had left, they could be considered to have won this time. Those enormous dragons below were merely lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Even that dragon emperor was the same. Ancestral realm. Master, when you created the god-slaying martial skill, did you hide some other power? Yan Mingyao's face was red, and there was a rare tiredness on her face. She softly asked as she climbed onto a cloud bed. Hide? Wang Feng shook his head slightly. I didn't hide it. The god-slaying martial skill, the 2 words god-slaying, doesn't represent the god-slaying of the dark demon field. This god-slaying martial skill was created according to the specifications of the 6th generation god-slaying of the dark demon field. Naturally, it can't be exactly the same as the god-slaying of the dark demon field. It's obviously impossible to rely on Jing Tian and the others to activate the god-slaying martial skill to defeat that dragon. The strength of a universe-level life form is far beyond their imagination. The sacred dragon will that enormous dragon displayed just now was very interesting. This should be the true universe will from the 10,000 Dragons universe. It's not ordinary. Wang Feng pondered. The universe will wasn't something that could be found on the streets. This dragon sent by the 10,000 Dragons universe already had the universe will, and its strength was extraordinary. It seemed that the 10,000 Dragons universe wasn't simple. You still haven't told me? Yan Mingyao gently blew on the cloud bed. Above the cloud bed that was shrouded in clouds and mist, waves of clouds suddenly appeared. Her skin that was as white as snow and jade could be vaguely seen, and there was even a faint hint of red. Didn't I tell you about the god-slaying martial skill? Wang Feng said. Yan Mingyao pondered for a few seconds and seemed to recall something. She suddenly said, Oh, it's the god-slaying spear's power? You used the god-slaying spear's power on it? Wang Feng nodded slightly. The god-slaying spear was an innate treasure of the primitive universe, and naturally wasn't simple. Wang Feng didn't know how many times he had used it, but the god-slaying spear carried an extremely powerful fiendish aura. Back in the Douluo continent, Wang Feng used the god-slaying spear to fight against a few strong enemies. Later, when he slowly became stronger and the chaotic green lotus was completely restored, the various forms it took were naturally extremely powerful. The most powerful thing about the god-slaying spear's fiendish aura was that it could directly injure the soul when it caused damage, and it was difficult to recover. Although this fiendish aura alone couldn't deal with a universe-level life form. However, it was enough to scare them away, especially that 5-color divine dragon. The god-slaying spear's fiendish aura was modified by me, and it became the god-slaying martial skill. That dragon probably sensed that its dragon body wasn't immune to this kind of damage, and it was frightened. That's why it ran away. Wang Feng said. However, it ran away very quickly. This bastard was very vigilant when it came. It seemed to know a lot about the God System universe, or more accurately, it knew a lot about the battle between me and the God System universe. I'm guessing that it came here to destroy the Dragon God Realm. It didn't come here to deal with Jing Tian and the others. End of chapter. Chapter 1879. As for Wang Feng's guess, Yin Mingyao was very surprised. She never thought that it was possible. They gave the 10,000 Dragon Pearl to the Golden Dragon King. Wang Feng frowned slightly. I think it's very likely that it has something to do with the Dragon God's identity and not the Golden Dragon King or the Dragon God Realm. In fact, they might just be using the 10,000 Dragon Pearl as an experiment. The 10,000 Dragon Pearl contains a few wisps of great Tao power, and they came from the Creation Jade Disc. They might not know what they can do. Now that the 10,000 Dragon Pearl is gone, I use the Creation Jade Disc to absorb it. So the 10,000 Dragons universe might be worried about something. In any case, the five-color Divine Dragon's attitude toward the Dragon God Realm is very different from before. They're either here to find the 10,000 Dragon Pearl or destroy the Dragon God Realm. There's no way they're here to deal with Jing Tian and the others. Jing Tian and the others aren't strong enough to catch the attention of the dragons. Speaking of which, Wang Feng looked at the happy Jing Tian and the others on the screen and said, "Let's give them their rewards first. Of course, we can't give them the same amount of points as the previous one. On average, we should give them 1,000,000 points each. Those dragons can only be fed to the dragons in the ancestral realm right now." There were a lot of things in the prize pool. Wang Feng wasn't worried that they could exchange all the points. He hoped that they could exchange more points and grow faster. He believed that after experiencing the Dragon God Realm's instance dungeon this time, the strength of these people should have grown by a large amount. "You're so generous, Master." Yin Mingyao giggled. "What's next? What about the Dragon God Realm? We'll leave this place to the Douluo God Realm. Aren't Tang San and Long Xie here?" Wang Feng said indifferently. "At the Dragon God Realm, on a mountain peak outside Dragon City." "It's that simple?" Long Xie's eyes widened. "I saw that thing didn't hurt that multicolored beast at all. What's going on?" "It was hurt, but it was a very small wound." Tang San shook his head. "These people came from the other side, and they're using that weapon. Just from the fact that it killed tens of thousands of huge dragons with a single strike, it is definitely a divine weapon that surpasses our imagination." "I know." Long Xie nodded. "When the emperor left, he said that the ancestral god gave them these things. Of course it's simple. It's just that I really don't understand that last attack. That five-color beast is so powerful. That powerful willpower almost crushed me to death just now. That weapon was also shattered. He clearly didn't suffer any serious injuries, but he left. It's ridiculous." Long Xie shrugged. "Perhaps it's fear," Tang San muttered. The five-color dragon clan might truly be afraid of the ancestor god behind the creation of that weapon. It could also be that the weapon contains a powerful force that we don't know of. In any case, the threat that the Dragon God Realm poses to us should have disappeared. After that, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief. That is indeed a good thing. Long Xie thought for a moment. Speaking of which, who exactly is that ancestor god? These fellows aren't weak. Moreover, I can faintly feel that each of them has a unique aura. What kind of aura? Tang San asked curiously. Long Xie thought for a moment. It's just like how I felt when I met Boss on the Douluo continent. Tang San didn't quite understand Long Xie's description. Are you saying that each of them has the same potential as Big Brother Foam? That's probably the feeling, Long Xie said. You have the same aura. Tang San laughed. You don't know where that feeling came from. It's not reliable. TCH, I've absorbed a lot of resentment and negative energy in this world. His ability to sense auras is much stronger than yours. Long Xie waved a hand. Tang San smiled in agreement. All right, isn't your youngest son already born? Long Xia asked. Why don't you send him to this world to train? Your eldest daughter and son-in-law have both ascended to godhood. Your boss's brother, so your youngest son should call me uncle. Long Xia pondered. The Golden Dragon King's power is far beyond your imagination. I can purify that bastard's power. I can use it as a safeguard for your youngest son. What do you think? Long Xia smiled. I'm so happy when I think about the dragon god's mongrel power being used by you gods. Tang San, you don't want to give my son a gift at all. You just want to make yourself happy, right? Thank you. Tang San nodded. You're welcome. Long Xia burst into laughter and said, let's go and discuss this with them. They should be willing to give us a Golden Dragon King carcass. It was indeed no problem. The entire dragon city had been destroyed. Tens of thousands of dragons. A mere Golden Dragon King's body was nothing. Cao Cao gave it to Long Xia and the others without even thinking about it, even if they didn't give him any important information along the way. Even so, the Dragon Emperor's body was enough to befriend a God King of the Divine Realm. 1,000,000 points made everyone's face bloom with bright smiles. So this is a large-scale event dungeon. Jing Tian sighed. I really want to do it a few more times. It's too good. We've already earned 1,000,000 points this time. The event is too much. Based on my experience, Yi Fan said with a smile, next should be the grass planting stage. The ancestor god will let us use up the points before starting another event. However, this is only the first event dungeon of the God Hunt mission. The God Hunt mission is still ongoing, so we'll continue to earn points. But we still need to settle down for a while. 1,000,000 points should be enough for us to take a big step forward. Everyone nodded. By the way, I suddenly thought of something. Hanli asked, why didn't the South Profound Immortal Sovereign, who joined the group with me, appear in this event dungeon? Everyone was also stunned. They hadn't thought of this before. Now that Hanli brought it up, they came to their senses. That's right. Wasn't everyone supposed to participate in this event? Why was there one person missing? That was very strange. It seems that he hasn't spoken in the group either. Yi Fan frowned. That shouldn't be the case. I remember that he responded before the event started. Only the ancestor god should know about this. End of chapter. Chapter 1880. The Dragon God World event had ended. Other than the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign, everyone else had obtained a large amount of points. After returning to their respective worlds, they all began to cultivate in seclusion. Ancestral Realm. All right, Master, I didn't notice the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign either. He didn't participate in this event. Where did he go? Yin Mingyao asked this question because she didn't notice it either. She only realized it when Jing Tian and Yi Fan mentioned it. Wang Feng frowned for a few seconds, then slowly said, have you forgotten what he exchanged for the first time? It's the eternal tracing sand. Yin Mingyao immediately said. But after saying it, she understood. The eternal tracing sand was an ultimate treasure that could enter the river of time. It could be used to search for the traces of important people or things. Of course, it was something that Wang Feng found in the river of time with his origin wheel. Of course, it wasn't very useful to him. After all, he could enter the river of time at any time. But to others, it was naturally an ultimate treasure. Master, you mean you want to find someone important? Yin Mingyao immediately recalled the origin of the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign. In his previous life, the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign should have been the strongest person in this chat group. Later, due to the interference of the Divine System universe, the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign was killed by a descendant of a god from the Divine System universe. At the same time, his master, a woman, was taken away. I remember that in order to obtain points, he gave you the first fragment of the Creation Jade Disc. Then, he immediately exchanged it for the Eternal Tracing Sand that was worth a few 100,000. Yin Mingyao pondered. Could it be that he found his master's trace and went directly? That shouldn't be the case. With his current strength, even if he found his master's trace, wouldn't he be courting death if he went directly? His master was taken away by a god from the Divine System universe. Wang Feng's gaze was deep. There's only one possibility. What? He has a reason that he has to go. Wang Feng said, perhaps his master encountered some danger. Even if he isn't strong enough now, he has to go. However, I had no choice but to go. At that time, I gave him 3 divine protective lights to protect his life. But those protective divine lights can only protect against heavenly God-level attacks. If he's any stronger, he won't be able to do it. Moreover, he still has several 100,000 points. He can also exchange them for some good stuff. However, since his master was taken away by a heavenly god from the divine system universe, he must have provoked a heavenly god. Wang Feng paused for a moment. Wait, something's not right. Wang Feng raised his eyes, and his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. Meanwhile, Su Fan walked unsteadily on the crimson ground. His eyes were filled with determination and a tinge of blood. Ever since the ancestor god bestowed him with points, his cultivation was growing at a rapid pace. He was different from the others in the group. In his previous life, he had stood at an extremely high position. It could be said that there were almost no obstacles in his cultivation. Even if the place where he was reborn was the age of Dharma's end, where spiritual energy had withered. However, with the various treasures that he had obtained using the reward pool, he had reached an extremely high level in a very short time. One had to know that in the event prize pool, there were even treasures that could temporarily change the flow of time. It allowed Su Fan to improve rapidly in a very short period of time. Naturally, the reason he was trying so hard to improve himself was so that he could find his master. Through the eternal tracing sand, he already knew the location of his master. His master was taken to another universe by that god. The specific location was in the world that he was currently in. As for how he got there, in the event prize pool, there was a treasure similar to the eternal tracing sand, the eternal cave ritual. As long as he rotated this object, according to the location where the eternal tracing sand appeared, he could directly travel to that location. It was still a one-time consumable item. It was extremely precious. Su Fan used up the remaining points to barely get here. My current cultivation might only be about 2/3 of my strength in my previous life. Su Fan took a deep breath. However, to be able to recover this strength in such a short period of time is already incredible. He moved forward. This world was very strange. The moment he entered, he felt as if his entire body was sealed. The spiritual energy and various Tao techniques in his body were completely useless. It was as if all the rules had changed. All the divine abilities, secret techniques, and so on that he was familiar with could not be used. At the same time, he also had to face a pressure as majestic as a mountain. If it was in the past, he would not be able to withstand this huge pressure. Fortunately, the 3 protective divine lights bestowed by the ancestor god reduced this pressure by more than 90%, allowing him to move forward normally in this world. This should be the world of that god. Su Fan's eyes were complicated and numb. According to the original plan, although he knew the location of his master, he did not plan to come immediately. According to the original plan, Su Fan planned to participate in the Dragon God Realms event and obtain a large number of points. His strength had to at least surpass his previous life strength. He had to make sufficient preparations before coming to this world. At least he could guarantee that he could save his master and return safely. However, things did not go as planned. When he used the eternal tracing sand, he planned to first see where his master was. He sensed it. This eternal tracing sand could temporarily allow him to enter a long river of time and see the situation after his master was taken away. The situation was not good. After his master was brought to this world by that god, it seemed that he was going to be brainwashed. In the words of that god, he would become the god's family. He would become the possession of that god. Mother asterisk Kerr. How could he endure this? Because it was his own personal matter. Su Fan did not want the group members to get involved and bring trouble to himself. Therefore, he did not say a word. He, who was bristling with anger, came to this world straight away. Although, the moment he came to this world, he knew that there was a possibility that he would not be able to return. The pressure that this world constantly emitted made him know that this was not something he could resist. However, since he was already here, how could he return? I definitely cannot let my master become that god's family. Su Fan took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. Even if I die, I will not. Back then, he was killed by the spawn of that god. Su Fan looked forward. At the end of his line of sight, there was an extremely grand palace. It was difficult to describe the grandeur and magnificence of this palace with words. In his previous life, he also had his own immortal palace, but it was far from being comparable to this palace. Chapter 1881. He walked forward one step at a time. He knew that even if he went to the palace and saw his master, he might not be able to do anything. But he had to give it a try. At the end of his line of sight was the golden palace that stood above the clouds. Your Eminence, it seems that an uninvited guest has arrived in the divine realm. A sonorous voice rang out from the center of the palace. In the main hall, there seemed to be countless jade pillars supporting the eaves above. The pillars seemed to be comparable to an entire world, with countless moving images on them. Strands of golden energy slowly flowed out from each of the pillars. Counting carefully, there were hundreds and thousands of pillars in the palace. They were densely packed together. The golden energy drifted out of each pillar, gathered at the center, and slowly flowed upward. There was a throne at the top of the palace. Countless strands of golden energy that represented the power of faith flowed into the throne. An imposing figure sat quietly on the throne. Next to him were two goddess-like women. They sat quietly on either side of the throne like children, gently fanning themselves. Below, rows of clan members in armor and divine robes of various shapes and sizes lined up on both sides. "It's a human," the sonorous voice said again. The loud voice continued. "It seems to be a human that I once killed. I didn't expect him to come back to life. Your Eminence, please allow me to go and crush this insect that dares to enter the divine domain into dust." The owner of the voice was a giant that was at least 10 feet tall. Although he was a human, he had a pair of wings on his back and a dragon's head on his face. His body was covered with thick golden hair. Even the armor that shone like black gold could not cover up the thick hair on his body. "No need," Her Eminence said nonchalantly. "Since he was able to enter my divine realm, he's no ordinary being. Besides, I expected him to come here. Don't worry, it's all part of my plan. Go down and prepare to activate the divine will of the 10 beasts." "Then what should we do with this ant?" The gigantic life form with a loud and clear voice asked. "I'll only send someone to destroy him," said Her Eminence with a wave of her hand. In an instant, all the minions in the palace disappeared. A moment later, "Come here," Her Eminence said flatly. A figure suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. "He used to be your disciple, so you should be the one to deal with him, shouldn't you?" Her Eminence smiled faintly. He seemed to be quite interested in this. The figure trembled slightly in the void before replying in a calm and fervent voice, "As you command." His figure disappeared into the void. A moment later, a shadow appeared. Seeing the shadow, only then did the god stand up and say, "Your Highness, I have done as you instructed. Back then, you asked me to spare that ant's life. Could it be because of this?" "What secrets does that ant have?" The shadow remained silent. "Your Highness, I've done so much for you. Can't you tell me anything?" Her Eminence's tone changed slightly. "Let's talk about it when you can do it," the shadow replied casually. Hearing this, the god took a deep breath and said slowly, "Your Highness, why do you want to deal with that aboriginal god? Now that the War of the Gods has caused an uproar in the universe, logically speaking, given the god system behind you, even if that aboriginal god is going to die or lose, he should be defeated. He should be defeated fair and square in the War of the Gods. This way, the higher-ups will have enough reason and excuse to take in those unruly aboriginal gods. Why do you need us to deal with him?" asked Her Eminence. No matter how weak and useless that god-chiming of the Dongwang divine system is, he is still a war of the gods. Given the current War of the Gods, I think that with the War of the Gods, Your god system and the other major god systems behind you will secretly help that god Qiming to win, right? You have a lot of questions, said the shadow indifferently. Your Highness, please forgive me, said Her Eminence in a low voice. I just don't want to be used as a tool by you. You know how I feel about you. Besides, if I get involved in the War of the Gods, my god system may be implicated as well. So, Your Highness, please tell me why you want me to do this. Killing a native heavenly god is nothing to me. However, this aboriginal god is one of the main characters of the War of the Gods. The shadow was silent for a long time. Are you very confident? Asked the shadow mockingly. Probably a little, said Her Eminence humbly. Then there's no harm in telling you, said the shadow indifferently. God Qiming won't be able to defeat that aboriginal god unless that god Qiming becomes a paramount god or possesses the strongest will of the universe. Only then can he win. That is, if the other major god systems intend to help him. Then they will have to give him even more power. Such behavior is too obvious. It's obviously cheating. If those aboriginal gods find out about it, they will definitely not approve of it. At that time, a war of the gods might break out. Exterminating these native heavenly gods is a very humiliating thing for our godly system universe. The higher-ups will try to subdue them if they can. We will only exterminate them as a last resort. So, do you understand? Her Eminence frowned. That huge divine shadow seemed to be twisting and distorting. Is this aboriginal god that powerful? Asked Her Eminence in surprise. What I mean is, I understand the combat power of aboriginal gods. However, a war of the gods is a battle according to the rules of our god system. No matter how strong he is, he won't be able to unleash his full power in a war of the gods. How can he win? Her Eminence was very confused. The rules of a war of the gods were very beneficial to the gods of the god system. For example, there was a very simple rule that both sides could not use more than 50% of the will of the universe. At the same time, there were many conditions to determine the outcome of a war of the gods. For aboriginal gods, no matter how strong the will of the universe was, they could only unleash half of its power. As for the gods of the god system, even if they only had a projection of their will, their projection was only slightly weaker than the will of the universe. The difference was even smaller when the will of the universe was reduced by half. All these rules made it so that a war of the gods was not beneficial to aboriginal gods. However, in the god system, it was extremely fair. Therefore, Her Eminence could not understand what the shadow was saying, unless the native heaven god was terrifyingly strong. Even if he was suppressed by the rules of a war of the gods, he could still crush Venus god. But how is that possible? He was just an aboriginal god. It did not exist. If you understand, then so be it, said the shadow coldly. I don't expect you to kill him. As long as you could defeat him or injure him, that's fine. Or make him unable to use his powerful abilities. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.